Good morning, Commissioners, Chief Moore, Mr. T. Fank, Madam Secretary, Mr. Inspector General, Mr. City Attorney Carlos De La Guerra, and members of the public. Today is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect Commissioners Suthers, Shields, Briggs, and Garcia are present, and we have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning. The Police Commission is committed to ensuring equal access to its meetings. It is requested that individuals who require the services of a translator contact the board secretary no later than the day preceding the meeting. Whenever possible, a translator will be provided. Sign language interpreters, assistive listening devices, or other auxiliary aids and/or services may be provided upon request. To ensure availability, you are advised to make your request at least 72 hours prior to the meeting you wish to attend. All public comment will be heard during item number 2 on the agenda. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of the speakers will be: a speaker in this room will go first, then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate between speakers in the room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you are free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinions shall be deemed off-topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in this meeting in a number of ways outlined on the agenda. Number 1, submit a speaker card to one of the officers who will then give the card to the board's secretary indicating you wish to speak during the meeting. Number 2, submit written public comment in advance of the meeting to email address publiccommission@lapd.online. Number 3, if you've logged into Zoom, raise your virtual hand. Number 4, or you can call into a phone number listed on the agenda and press *9 if you want to speak on an agenda item. If you wish to just listen to the meeting, you can call into the phone numbers listed on the agenda that are designated for call-in and listening. Message for those attending the meeting in person. These meetings are regular meetings between the board, the department, and key stakeholders. Meetings of the Board of Police Commissioners are open to the public. The state's Ralph M. Brown Act affords the public the opportunity to be present at the meetings, hear the presentations and dialogue in real time, and provide feedback via the public comment period. During these meetings, there is a need for the board to carry out public business expeditiously without delays or disruptions. Members of the audience shall not engage in any conduct which causes an actual disruption of the meeting. Those attending in person are reminded that disruptive behavior will be cause for removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. While in the boardroom, members of the audience must be seated. Standing is not permitted. In the past, standing may have been permitted for a few, but moving forward, this courtesy will not be afforded to attendees except for credentialed members of the press. All attendees must be seated. Failure to follow this rule will result in a warning and/or removal from the meeting. Additionally, I will make note that the board's approved rules do state that signs, posters, banners, or other display materials which disrupt or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of the meeting or which create any obstruction to any other person's attendance or ability to view or participate in the meeting are prohibited. You've been given your first warning regarding the puppet. Failure to follow this rule will result in a warning and/or removal from the meeting. At this time, we will move to item number 1, the report of the Chief of Police. Chief Moore.
Good morning, Commissioner President Suthers, Commissioner Briggs as well, Vice President Shields, Mr. Garcia, to the Inspector General, Assistant Inspector General, as well as Mr. City Attorney. Thank you for being here, and I will begin my remarks today with significant instances as I do each week, and to speak about crime and then also our personnel strength. Regarding significant incidents, I'm going to limit my remarks to the set of circumstances this last weekend involving the fire underneath the I-10 freeway that occurred late Friday night, early Saturday morning in a area that was the undercarriage, if you will, of that large structure, multi-lane freeway. That fire resulted in tremendous amount of damage. I'm grateful that in the response of the LA Fire Department, in concert with LAPD, our role there was to assist in the evacuation of those that were in the area, as well as to facilitate the ingress and egress of emergency apparatus, including fire department resources, that there was no loss of life, there was no injuries to anyone involved. In the immediate aftermath of that significant major event, we established an on-scene presence, and the city rallied in its emergency operations. We are, under the leadership of Mayor Bass, summoned both an on-scene presence that has continued to this day, to this point, and will continue for the foreseeable future, in support of what is now the recovery and remediation of that transportation corridor. The efforts of us also on scene that day and through to today and going forward has been to support our Major Crimes Division. Investigators are working alongside in support of the Fire Marshal for the state of California, as well as LA City Fire Arson Investigation. Our efforts there is to ensure that their investigation to determine the individual responsible, and that yesterday the Fire Marshal did announce to the public that the initial determination of the cause and origin of this fire is an arson, that it was purposeful, and that an individual or individuals are responsible. Our investigation is supporting in the sense of conducting interviews in the area, canvassing the area for any types of video or other evidence that would help identify the individual or individuals that are responsible. I've also spoken with DA George Gascon of the District Attorney's Office to ensure that the District Attorney's Office remains abreast of the status of this investigation in its pursuit to identify the responsible parties. Additionally, we've assigned uniformed motor officers and other traffic officers in support of the Department of Transportation, as they have been tasked with this, dealing with, if you will, the tens of thousands of automobiles that are now on the surface streets. That is generally a highly congested area with a great deal of materials that are transported and moved about, in addition to the motoring public, that has now only been compounded by the complete shutdown of this freeway. The Department of Transportation personnel are on scene. They've taken some interim measures to adjust signals as well as establish temporary barriers. The LAPD's role in this is to have an on-scene presence from approximately 4 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, with added motor officers to support those Department of Transportation traffic officers to facilitate the movement and to avoid gridlock. We are also there to ensure the safety of these traffic officers as they're dealing with, at times, motorists that are ill-tempered or believing that they can express their frustration against the traffic officer. I am happy to say that there's been no crimes committed. However, I am reminding Angelenos that as they enter in this area, that they know in advance that this is an area that's going to be severely congested and impacted because of the shutdown of this freeway, and that they plan accordingly. As the mayor has indicated repeatedly, the best option is to stay on the freeway rather than to use identified street alternates. Secondly is to stay home and work from home if at all possible, and avoid the area entirely. For those local merchants and individuals that do have to, they'll venture into that area because of their day-to-day life, we ask again that they prepare in advance, prepare for for delays. We are monitoring, working alongside with Caltrans, the Department of Transportation, to monitor traffic delays. They do vary across the course of the day. However, they are manageable in the sense that they range from a delay of 15 to 20 minutes to as much as 30 to 40 minutes, which all in all, when you look at traffic in Los Angeles, can be a typical delay based on a disruption because of a traffic collision or otherwise. So keeping this in perspective, I'm asking the public in support of Mayor Bass's messaging as well as Caltrans that we plan ahead, we avoid this area for the foreseeable future, that if we must go into this area, that we recognize that traffic officers are there to facilitate the safety of everyone involved, that we treat them with respect and the courtesy that we should. And the Los Angeles Police Department will also be there to help facilitate this movement, as well as to take enforcement action for those who believe that those traffic controls are only suggestions and not requirements. The Department of Transportation is also working with us and with street services to transition from cones and temporary measures to a more lasting long-term solutions such as Jersey barriers and other hardened structures as a means of ensuring that traffic officers are not poised in such circumstances of being and standing in intersections with busy traffic for hours at a day. I am encouraged by this morning's announcement by Governor Newsom and this full state's efforts to remediate this situation. Their shoring operations are going on today and will continue this week. The removal of the debris is continuing this week, and the engineers have determined, it's my understanding by the announcement this morning, that this structure will not require its demolition, but rather its remediation, and that it is their ambition at this point to reestablish traffic lanes within a 3 to 5 week period. So while that is certainly an encouragement from what we had looked and assessed earlier, it is still a 3 to 5 week delay, and we are simply in day 3 of this today. So we're going to ask for everyone's continued patience and their work to show their better angels, and for Los Angeles to work together as we have in other unusual circumstances and disasters and unforeseen instances where we can work together, we can lean in and work our way through this circumstance and be proud of our work together. Next item I'd like to discuss is an officer-involved shooting that occurred on November 1st, and this occurred in the Topanga area of the San Fernando Valley on the 1st at approximately 7:45 in the evening. Topanga Division uniform officers responded to an assault with a deadly weapon suspect there now at a restaurant parking lot located in the 23300 block of Avenue St. Louis. The individual, later identified as Benjamin Pitchard, a male white, 35 years of age, was reportedly armed with a machete and had struck a victim several times. During that attack, Mr. Pitchard reportedly dropped the machete and, however, produced a knife, and resulting in the victim running away. Officers arrived on scene in response to the radio call and observed Mr. Pritchard in the restaurant parking lot holding the knife. He ran away from officers who broadcasted a backup call, and as officers continued to follow him in their vehicle, they observed that he also picked up a glass bottle along with the knife that he was carrying. Officers made several attempts to detain him and gave him directions to drop the bottle and knife. He continued to flee on foot. Officers followed him as he headed towards a nearby restaurant. Officers utilized their public address system to direct community members to shelter in place as Mr. Pritchard ran into that parking lot of the restaurant. Officers continued to verbalize with him. He refused to comply. Officers did deploy 2 taser deployments or darts deployments. The first was ineffective. Reportedly, the second appeared to have resulted in Mr. Pritchard falling to the ground, causing him to break the bottle that was in his possession. However, he was still armed with a knife, stood up, and ran into the restaurant outdoor seating area with numerous patrons still inside the restaurant, and this resulted in an officer-involved shooting. Mr. Pritchard was struck by gunfire and fell to the ground. He was taken into custody without further incident, and officers rendered medical aid until a rescue ambulance arrived. He was transported to a hospital where he unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. A machete was recovered from the original site of the radio call, and a knife was recovered from the location of the officer-involved shooting. There was no officers or other community members that were injured. The initial victim that was injured and struck by the machete will recover, and his injuries were not deemed serious. Force Investigation Division responded to this and will conduct this investigation. With this officer-involved shooting, we have a total of 31 officer-involved shootings this year. Last year at the same time, that number was 30. We have a total of 15 fatal officer-involved shootings. That number last year was 14. Moving next to our crime statistical snapshot. Year-to-date, I'm happy to report we still see an overall reduction in violent crime in each of the categories, with a 5.2% reduction. That's 1,425 fewer violent crime. Reductions in homicide of 18%, which is 63 fewer homicides year-to-date, and that is a 17% reduction from 2021. However, in comparison to 2019, we still have a 22% reduction in homicides. In regards to our overall crime, we do see challenges in our personal thefts, as well as in residential and commercial burglaries. And lastly, the year gains that we had seen through most of the year in regards to vehicle thefts has nearly evaporated, with vehicle thefts now having only a 1% reduction. As a reminder to the public, vehicle thefts have increased significantly in the last 4 years. We are at 68% higher in vehicle thefts today in Los Angeles than we were in 2019. The primary influencer of that continue to be Hyundais and Kias, which unfortunately have, because of the weaknesses in their security systems, have become a target for many times repeat offenders to target and steal those vehicles for transportation. We encourage the public to continue to access security devices such as steering wheel locks for those owners of those two make and models, as well as to work with the manufacturers that are offering additional security enhancements to the vehicle. However, those enhancements are electronics and matters that are not seen to an outside individual. So the best strategy, in my view, is prevention by, if you own a Hyundai or a Kia, is to place and use a steering wheel lock anytime you're in a public setting to discourage and those individuals who believe that they can break and enter your vehicle and steal it with little effort. Last, in regards to our crime, I want to talk briefly about our hate crime. Year-to-date, hate crimes continue to be on an increase overall, with a 13% increase. That's 701 hate crimes this year versus 620 last year. In regards to the influencers of that, we've seen a dramatic increase in hate crimes and hate instances since the October 7th Hamas terrorist acts in Israel. With that, year-to-date, we have a 44% increase in anti-Jewish hate crimes and a 80% increase in anti-Muslim, anti-Arab hate crimes. The numbers behind those statistics: 128 anti-Jewish crimes year-to-date versus 89 for the same period last year, 18 anti-Muslim, anti-Arab hate crimes compared to 10 last year. In regards to, when I speak to the significant influence that we've seen in this last month, just over a month, in regards to the Hamas-Israeli war, anti-Jewish hate crimes were numbered 38 during that period of time, from October 7th to November 11th. That number was 7 last year. That's a 442% increase. Anti-Muslim, anti-Arab hate crimes since October 7th to November 11th have totaled 13. That same number last year was 2. So we see significant increases in those areas. Our efforts will continue to be to provide education and awareness to ensure that all of our communities understand that we will do everything possible to protect the rights of everyone of all communities, that we will facilitate, whenever possible, organizations and demonstrations for the safety of all involved. However, we will also aggressively investigate both hate instances and certainly pursue the prosecution of those involved in hate crimes. Lastly, I'll speak to our personnel strength. Since our last report, we've seen an increase of 14 in our sworn deployment. We now stand at 8,970 sworn personnel. Our civilian personnel number at 2,610. That's 3 additional from our last report. Both of these are still well under our authorized strength. The department continues to pursue efforts to improve and increase the rate of hiring qualified interested individuals, both in our sworn as well as our civilian professional work staff. And we encourage people to go online and apply and become part of what I think is a department that leads in American policing and the safety of this city. Commissioners, that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Chief. I'll take remarks or questions from Commissioner Briggs.
Thank you, President Suthers. Chief, I understand that we had an OIS by a federal agency recently. Was LAPD involved at all in that particular incident?
So we provided information on this yesterday. There was a U.S. Marshals Task Force operating from outside the county that was investigating a set of circumstances here in the Wilshire area of the city. During their investigation, it's my understanding an officer-involved shooting occurred. It did not involve any LAPD personnel either at the scene or involved in the shooting itself. The department's role in regards to that incident, in regards to all outside agencies that conduct operations in the city where such a circumstance arises, is our robbery homicide division personnel responded out to the scene, and they will conduct the criminal portion of the investigation involving the actions of all involved. We will limit our remarks to the characterizations of what occurred in that and refer, as we have to this point, any press or media inquiries to the U.S. Marshal's Office.
Thank you, Chief. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Briggs. Vice President Shields.
Thank you, President Suthers, and thank you, Chief, for your report. I had two kind of unrelated questions. One, since our last meeting, we had an off-duty officer, Officer Cunningham, who was killed in the DUI traffic collision. And, you know, we see so many more fatalities involving vehicles and particularly DUIs. First, my sincere condolences to all of Officer Cunningham's colleagues, family, and friends. Is there anything more that the department can be doing in regards to traffic accidents and particularly DUI drivers in the middle of the night?
Thank you. So for some statistical perspective, as of the 4th of November, 275 individuals, Angelenos, have been killed in traffic collisions here in the city of Los Angeles. That's a 4.6% increase. Most troubling is when we look back to, again, 2019, that's a 33% increase. The instances of DUI-related fatal collisions have also increased similarly. 23 of those collisions year-to-date have involved fatalities. Of those fatalities have been DUI related. We believe the driver that resulted in a double fatal, including Officer Darrell Cunningham, and that tragic loss of both their lives was a result of a DUI driver, a driver who was impaired at the time of the collision. In regards to the same period last year, that's a 28% increase. Over going back to 2019, it's a 53% increase in fatal DUIs. Our efforts continue, working with traffic officers, working with motor officers, to focus on the high injury network of roadways, to identify locations where collisions occur, particularly involving DUI drivers, to do regular standing saturation patrols, meaning heavier deployments in those areas, on the lookout to identify those that are driving while impaired. Additionally, we do, if you will, random stops of traffic control points, DUI checkpoints, commonly referred to, where resources are there to stop on a randomized basis motorists and to check them for impairment. Each of these instances result in arrests of impaired drivers. I'm grateful to the Office of Traffic Safety, the California State Office of Traffic Safety, who provides this department with substantial additional resources that allow us to augment our already existing resources on an overtime basis. We lead this state in regards to our DUI enforcement and the number of arrests in regards to this. Mothers Against Drunk Drivers regularly, on an annual basis, identifies those agencies, and we are always either at the front or in the first couple, if you will, agencies in regards to our outreach. Lastly, our education and awareness is something that we definitely continue to talk about, both in our schools, our high schools, as well as in our public messaging. And we will also continue to back legislation that takes the keys away from DUI drivers and installs, and I'm happy to see the legislation that now installs interlock devices on vehicles that have had individuals who have been arrested for DUI. So, but we do need to reverse the trend. In the last 4 years, an area that we were seeing reductions in DUI-related crashes and DUI-related arrests has now shifted. Now, this is, I believe, connected to where we've seen as a society, as one of the attributes of the pandemic and so forth, is the increased use of alcohol, the increased stress, and the people who are resorting to the use of alcohol and other substances as coping devices that unfortunately is setting a stage for these types of tragic outcomes.
Thank you, Chief, and it's good to hear that the department is leading California in DUI enforcement. The other question I had relates to officer-involved shootings. One question that came up in a prior, one of our last meetings is about the release of the names of officers involved in shootings. And can you talk a little bit about, that the department has a, policy about releasing the videos after 45 days, and I know the department has been releasing them even sooner than that. Can you talk about the policies, practices relating to the release of the names of officers involved in shootings?
So it is the department's policy that those officers that were involved in the use of deadly force, that we will release their names to the public, generally within days of the officer-involved shooting, in the absence of a credible threat to their safety. So if there are, and it is a rarity that such circumstances have existed, but generally within 3 to 5 days, we have a critical incident briefing where I get the initial size up of the event, and that includes a threat assessment involving anyone that has position threats, whether it be by intimidation or actual actions that result in criminal threats against officers. Should such circumstances occur, then I weigh, as a chief, I weigh in the balance of whether the public disclosure of that officers or those officers' information serves the public's interest or could further jeopardize the officer's safety. Generally, we do not see threats against officers. In the rarity of instances in which we have investigated those promptly, identified those involved, and assessed and generally found that they are not actionable, and that the safeguards that we can provide the officers and his or her family are sufficient to allow for the release of the names.
And this is consistent with California law on the
Yes.
issue? Thank you, Chief. And I believe there was one recent matter where the release of the officer name was probably longer than a handful of days. I would just urge the department to, as soon as practicable, after determining that there is no threat, that the department release the names as soon as practical.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Shields. Commissioner Garcia.
Chief, as it relates to the increase in hate crimes, can you share a little bit about what we're doing internally, so internal resources, and then what those internal resources are doing to access and lean on external resources, whether it be clergy, community, or other sort of structured groups?
Yes, so in our regards to this most recent, even further surge, if you will, an increase, unfortunately, even prior to the Hamas invasion and terrorist acts in Israel, we saw increased levels of anti-Semitic hate crimes and instances, as well as an overall increase in hate crimes and instances year after year. And so our work most recently has been to continue the efforts of outreach and engagement, but we have, in the last month, 6 weeks, strengthened our systematic and regular patrols of houses of worship, particularly synagogues and mosques. We have also conducted outreach and meetings with the cleric and rabbis that work and lead in their faith, in their house of worship, and we have participated in a number of town halls and local community meetings with community members that have been intimidated and are frightful and remain in fear for their very safety. So it's a visibility, it's personalizing our outreach and engagement, And then we're also ensuring prompt investigations and thorough investigations, identifying individuals responsible for hate crimes, and working with the District Attorney's Office and U.S. Attorney's Office when appropriate to ensure their prosecution. Our message also is that for demonstrations and protests is that we will facilitate them. We will outreach in advance whenever possible to outreach and work with those organizers to facilitate the lawful expression and to take efforts to provide for their safety should there be someone who wants to take this opportunity to provide an attack or some type of cause them violence or harm. And should there be a counter protest or expression, to do everything possible to separate those individuals and keep a distance between them so that they can both have their First Amendment rights honored without impeding on the rights or the protections of the other party, the opposing party, for lack of a better term. We are very much aware and working on a regular basis with Sheriff Luna and the Sheriff's Department, our other regional partners, as well as state and federal partners in monitoring expressions of hate, any type of acts of hate involving violence, to identify potential trends or individuals or groups or ideology that might manifest themselves here in an act of a hate crime here in Los Angeles. We, at this point, I'm encouraged that we have no specific or credible threat of such violence, but we are also mindful that as Director Ray has indicated before Congress, as the director of the FBI, that we're very much concerned about third parties, individuals that would see this moment as an opportunity for them to try to hijack it and commit acts of violence and use the underlying tension as a fuel. So we are working aggressively to ensure that any tip or lead of such information is acted on promptly. And the last issue, and this is in regards to, I see Commissioner Suthers as the president here and recognizing your position at USC. We're also working with our universities and our high schools to understand and support them as the academic community works to provide for the lawful and organized and appropriate expression of concerns or dialogues of protest or disagreement with world events, but that it's done in a manner that is respectful of the safety of everyone involved, as well as the educational institution's ability to conduct their purpose, their role as an institution. So this is something that we're briefing our officers with, our supervisors, our command staff. It's a frequent conversation, and I'm proud of the work that our people are doing and I believe ensuring the safety of everyone involved, ensuring and recognizing that Los Angeles can show the world that we can, in such tumultuous times, be heard, but be heard in a manner that is respectful of the rights of everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Chief, I was at a recent faith-based task force meeting last week, a monthly meeting that was held at the mosque. They knew I would see you today, and they wanted to thank you for your participation in the hate crime panel that you had last month with the Attorney General, and they just wanted me to reiterate their thanks for you being there that day.
Thank you, and I look forward to working with all houses and continuing our efforts to ensure that our role is understood and that we are here to protect the rights of all communities.
Chief, on another matter, I understand last week there was a media report of some Tarzana day laborers who were trying to report bags containing body parts, and they were allegedly turned away from police stations before they called 911 from the parking lot. Are there any more details on exactly what happened that day?
Yes, I'm aware of that account. The homicide investigation, which is being overseen by Robbery Homicide Division, the initial reports of it were individuals that were tasked or asked by a homeowner or a resident to dispose of some bags of what was positioned to be rocks or other debris. And in the actions of those individuals, they believed that the bags actually contained human remains or something other than what was being offered, and that there was evidence of a crime. It's my understanding that they went initially to a California Highway Patrol office and was referred to a nearby Los Angeles Police Station, Topanga area, where after they spoke with a desk officer, that they were referred to call 911. And while LAPD officers did respond to that direction, did respond out to the location where the suspicious activity occurred, because the individuals did not have the bags in their possession. They just reported that they had had that experience and they had returned the bags to where they had gathered them from. But the officers' on-scene investigation, both in the front area as well as in the rear yard, while they located similar trash bags that were in description, the contents did not include, after examination, did not include any human remains. And as such, the officers' ability, with no other witness or other information, the officers were limited in their ability to take any further action. Resultingly, as the members of the media and others now know, the following morning, another report came of a trash bag containing what appeared to be human remains. We responded and tied these two instances together, and that has now become a subject of what, unfortunately, we believe to be a multi-person homicide. The actions of what occurred at the station is a complaint investigation. Officers are expected that when citizens or community members come to report a matter for police action, that they are to either take action immediately or have the person stand by while we summon field officers to the location. The mechanism, as reported, to call 911 as an alternative does not meet my standard or expectations. So we will conduct, as that's being reported, we'll conduct our investigation, and if that's found to be accurate, then we'll take corrective action involving those involved.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. We will now move to item agenda number 2, public comment. Madam Secretary, please announce the first speaker.
The first speaker is Rayshard Smith on item 5A.
I'm here for Takar Smith. I'm his brother. I want to start off by saying, protect and serve, none of that shit happened in my brother's case. Nobody was protected and nobody was served. I want to ask you a question. Have you seen the video? Do you agree with what happened on the police hands?
Sir, I'm not allowed to go back and forth with you.
I asked you a question.
Sir,
you answered her questions.
Later today.
But you answered her questions, though. Why you can't answer my question?
Later today, or
not
no
gonna be here
later than
later.
tomorrow, my position on regards to, and first, my condolences on the loss of your brother, but my position relative to the officer's use of force will be a matter of that will be released to the public. But at this point, this is a matter before the police commission, and it is not appropriate for me to comment at this point.
But if I'm asking you a question, it is appropriate for you to answer my question, right?
I will be happy to meet with
Because you didn't answer her question either.
I'll be
You
happy to
went
meet
all
with you,
around her
sir.
question.
I'll be happy to meet with
So,
you
all right,
outside
let
of
me
this.
get back to it. For one, the night this shit happened, my brother's face and the weapon that y'all said he used was posted all over the news. We couldn't get no information about the police that did it, though. No information at all. Why was his information all over the news the same night? Why is that?
Let's talk about it.
I'm asking you a question. You can speak now. What are you waiting for, dude?
Sir, again, my apologies to you. The protocols of this
We
meeting
here for
do
nothing.
not allow for. back
Okay,
and
I'm on
forth.
to my next question. You ain't. That's 2 questions you ain't answered yet.
Yes, sir.
That's crazy. Fuck is we here for? So, why was the officer's name passed out the same night? When y'all let my brothers, when y'all had his picture, everything posted on the news, why wasn't the officers involved posted on the news too?
Hello?
God damn. Are we not asking? What am I here? I'm just here to speak and not get no answers or what? That's the only thing I'm here for?
That's correct, sir.
You answered all the fuck her questions though, no problem. Why you can't answer none of my questions?
And again, sir, I'll be happy to sit down with you and meet with you after today's meeting and after this matter is heard before the commission.
It's been,
You should have answers by now.
right, it's been 10 months, dude. You ain't got no answers for me, but you answered all 30 of her questions with no problem. No, it was a problem because most of them you didn't even answer. You went around the shit.
Mr. Smith.
But I'm asking you direct questions and you're not answering them, sir.
Mr. Smith,
Here
our
we go
family
again.
liaison officers have spoken with you about this, is my understanding.
Officers ain't told me shit about
And
this.
I'm sure that they've tried to explain to you the protocols that are involved here. I'm happy to meet with you. I will meet with you again.
Why can't you answer my questions in private but not right here in public?
I will answer.
This must mean you condone what happened then, right?
Yep.
Does this mean you're condoning what happened?
You should not interpret my actions today.
I'm not trying to interpret. I'm trying to ask you questions so you can
I-
answer them out your own mouth.
My position.
But you're refusing to answer my question. Are you refusing to answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's crazy. How the fuck can you do that? You taking the fifth on that? Oh man, this shit's so frustrating. So, why are we here today about my brother's case? Because I still don't understand why we're here today. So we're here talking about Takar Smith's case. Why are we here if I can't get no answers? Can I ask somebody? Will anybody else want to answer my question? Any of y'all? I want to ask him because he's the chief. He's the chief of the police.
Sir, if I could,
So why you can't answer my question, sir?
sir, if I could, under the process, the Brown Act does not allow back and forth. This is your opportunity to speak.
It wasn't
To
back
the-
and forth. That was a question.
I know, but that is back and forth. You asking a question and him responding, that is back.
That
and
wasn't back and forth when she was asking him questions.
Right, because that's allowed, because they are the head of the department. They can ask him questions based on his report.
So the public, so the people you protect and serve, the motherfuckers you have integrity in all we say and do. But y'all ain't giving no integrity right now. You ain't saying shit.
As I've said, sir, I will meet with you after this.
I don't want to meet with you after this because you ain't gonna tell me shit else.
No, I will, but I will not do it here. It
Why not? We are in public.
Gotta be in private and not-
Why it got to be in private?
doesn't have to be in private. I'm happy to meet with you.
But we're all right here right now. When I asked you two questions and you haven't answered neither one. Why wasn't we told about this right here? I wasn't informed about this until yesterday. My mom wasn't even called. Nobody called my mom and told my mama nothing about this right here. Can you answer that question? Fuck.
Sir, the process does not allow an answer and back and forth. This
No,
is your opportunity.
so I'm only saying what I need to say
Right.
with no answers at all.
Right, and then they will meet with you after the meeting. They can't do this in this forum.
Well,
So this is your opportunity to tell them, talk to the board.
we gonna have our justice in court. That's all I gotta say because this right now is going nowhere. You see, you answering, you saying stuff, but this dude over here, the chief, ain't saying a motherfucking word. Then that's crazy, man. That's crazy. I'm ending with that because I'm not getting nowhere with this. No, none of my questions gonna be answered. I can see on her face she want to say something so bad. You want to answer my questions, man.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Smith. And
Mr. President, we do have 3 additional family members that would like to speak.
sure, please call the next speaker.
Daphne White,
Mika,
Shamika.
please will go before me.
Okay, Shamika.
Yes, hi. So my name is Shamika and I'm Takar's wife. So I'm speaking because today his death was a wrong death and I really called for help and that was wrong. So at least you guys can do today for me is please just find it out of policy. Like that's the least that you guys could do. Because my husband's supposed to be here to help me raise my children and all I wanted was him to do was to get the help that he needed. That's it. That's all I wanted was for him to get help so he can come back a better man like he was supposed to do. Now I'm just left alone with raising my kids and I'm going through it. It's very hard. Like this is a very like a nightmare for me. So I'm just asking, I'm here today just to ask you guys to just please just, at least you guys could just find it out of policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
Daphne White, please.
Why was the smart camera implemented on this day or any day?
Ma'am, hold on just 1 second. I just want her to reset your clock, so you have 3 minutes. Okay, ma'am, go ahead. And she will have as much time as she needs. Ma'am, go ahead.
So the smart camera wasn't implemented at this time or any time. Also, the way the aggressor, the person that
Ma'am,
shot.
excuse me. I'm sorry. One person's going to speak at a time. Is that clear? One person is going to speak at a time. Give her the courtesy of allowing her to make her public comment. If you'd like to speak, fill out a speaker card. Then you will speak when your turn comes. In the meantime, you will not speak. She's speaking now. She's speaking now, and you will wait. Ma'am, please continue.
Okay, and the way that he was killed, it was horrible. It was blasted all over the internet. Once again, you guys didn't take. I don't think you took the proper calls. You guys need more training in mental health. It's on paperwork that my cousin evidently had some mental issues. You guys went in full forcefully. It didn't take that many cops to take down one guy with no weapon, and he was already on his knees when he approached for the knife. The guy had already killed him, overkilled him. For what? For what? He was no harm or threat. It was 99 fucking police in there that could have took him down when they came in the door. He was being cooperative in everything until you got antsy with him. He got nervous, and whatever was going on in his head, he already hear voices. So you guys need to get some training, or don't go when it's a mental health case unless it's a death, if there's something involved. When you guys can to call the coroners or something. But far as dealing with mental health, you motherfuckers are not trained to do it. That's right. You need to get you some fucking help on training in mental health. Because evidently all you motherfuckers got a problem. You can't answer questions. You don't know. You can't this. You protecting the bullshit. I'm missing a whole fucking family member that will never come back again. And y'all sleep at night. We don't. So how I feel about y'all, you and anybody be over you, I don't feel shit about you. And that's all I gotta fucking say.
The next speaker, Alicia Smith.
She already had 2 strokes behind her fucking son. Y'all ain't do shit about it.
Okay, we'll move on to Zoom.
Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. Say his name.
Next, we have Philip Tabby.
All items, 5 minutes, please. Mike, it's time for you to go. Time for you to pack up and move to Tennessee. We don't want you here anymore. Every week you hear from the public on both sides of the aisle, and we're not happy. On the same note, public safety should never be political, but with you, Mike, it is. You'd rather please your political friends like Soft on Crime Monica Rodriguez than please the public. The people are the ones who are really in charge, not the bureaucrats. And Commission, have you really been stepping up to the plate to address any of this corruption? All I see is Kalanche chewing bubblegum when she's there, a brand new commissioner who almost never asks questions. And what happened to Briggs? You don't seem very happy anymore. Is it because you also knew about the body-worn situation before it became a real problem? And Commissioner Shields, great job. I heard you were at North Hollywood Station to visit our officers. I'm sure the officers have a lot to say since a poll showed 90% of them don't support Chief Cover-Up more. And President Suthers, please do not clear the room during a meeting because others decide to disrupt. there are stricter options which will make them think twice before disrupting a meeting. Now, back to the body worn. I was reading that the body worn situation will cause 300 cases not to be tried. This was very avoidable, but Cover Up More loves for the people to pay the price so he can save his own ass. Mike, you had your captain here at Foothill, get rid of me for no reason at all. What you did to me is called retaliation. I'm proof when you speak truth to power, Cover Up More will dispose of you and then reward the corruption. Lying Lozano, captain of Foothill, shouted, "You fucking idiot," at a citizen while driving a city vehicle, his first CPAB meeting, and it's online. Go watch it. But Chief Moore takes him out to pizza and demotes and transfers Captain Smith for allegedly saying something to a gang officer, and no cuss words were used. Cover Up More promotes Corey Polka after giving info to Les Moonves on a case that was being investigated, and then Cover Up More tweets about it. Or how about when he promoted a captain to commander after he perjured himself on overturning a BLM motion? BLM, this captain lied to overturn your motion. Mike, it's time for you to go. It's 3:30 in the morning and the bar is closed. You got to call an Uber. You know, we deserve a better chief of police who stands up for the people and their officers. Commissioner Shields, you had asked a question about a DUI enforcement earlier in the meeting, but Chief Moore really didn't give you any an answer. What about bringing pretext stops back? That would curb it. But see, he blames the pandemic. That's all he knows how to do is blame somebody else to save his own butt. Fire Chief Moore, fire Liz Rhodes. God bless the LAPD. Yield the rest of my time.
The next speaker, please, the Red Chief Hunt. Oh, no, items.
Good morning, the Red Chief Hunt. This is what everybody's talking about, Michael Moore, about you going to retire. They're not happy with what you're doing and the answers that you are giving them. Here's a whole family that is in here that you cause harm to. Because, I'm going to tell you why. Just like I said, I'm calling for 3,000 mental health workers instead of 10,000 police. I mean, I can cut the force down to 7,500 and get mental health providers. The city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles truly need it, because if we're killing mentally ill people, there's something wrong with our theory, and that's just based on what everybody else is saying. You know, you've been with LAPD a long time and stuff like that. Sometimes it's best to go out on a good note than a bad note, man, because everybody is saying that you've been here too long, and the equation is that if I go to all the how you guys reframe the overdoses with the fentanyl and stuff like that, that becomes homicide, and that's what the governor said too. I was telling Chief Woodridge, just said a lot of these deaths from the ODs or whatever is considered homicides, and I don't know if LAPD is responsible for killing the people. I mean, I'm out in the streets a lot, stuff like that, but it doesn't seem like, I have 4 deaths at the Bronco Motel, and and one could be an OD, 2 can be an OD, but 4 is somebody killing the people, Mike. I don't know if you go in and reframe it and do it just like that, saying that they're ODs, something wrong. Your record is not good as as you saying that it is, because people are down here and they talking about the mental health issues, and probably out of 3,849 people, you guys give these people only 45 minutes to speak what they're saying, but it's 3,849,000 people in the city of Los Angeles, and are they getting a due just? No, Mike, and they considering you responsible for it. So, to the family, if they killed somebody, the only way you're gonna get justice is if you hold Michael more accountable, because if you hold him accountable as an individual and do it in a lawsuit, then they have to settle with you. But money is not going to bring back your family. I'm sorry and things like that, but we have a long ways to go before the 3,000 mental health providers is needed for LAPD.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
Next, we have Betty Lee.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
Chief's report, agenda items, and public comment, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay, well, first, most people know I support LAPD. I support Chief Michael Moore and the police commissioners. On the agenda items, I support items 3C, D, E, F, G. And on public comment, I just think everybody needs to be on the same page. And all these negative remarks is sad. I think everybody should learn how to get along. We have one race on this earth, it's the human race. And with that, I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, and stay safe and healthy. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. The next speaker, go to puppet on all items.
So, it was a cold and dark night, March 30th, 2017. An assassination attempt occurred with the help of a state official, and the city attorney was there present and then left. And then a lawsuit was filed against the LAPD. Then March 2nd, 2020, there was a conference, a confidential conference, and a settlement was offered to resolve it. And then the settlement disappeared. 2 days before trial, one of your people called and gave the bad news that, sorry, fuck you, go to trial in Santa Ana where you can't win, or dismiss with no fees. So the individual did that. But not last night. Last night, I got something in the mail. Well, I don't really know, because I'm an animal, I don't know how to read. Well, actually, none of you know how to read. But it appears that that offer was supposed to go before something called the claims board. Oh, the claims board. It was supposed to be presented by the city attorney to the claims board, but apparently it wasn't. And so they went ahead and said it was rejected. Is that right there, Mr. City Attorney there representing the LAPD? Was that correct? Is that what happened? Did you present it to the claims board? Well, you see, the chief of the civil division is now a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon. Convicted felons say a lot of things, man, once they're convicted. Oh, this day is the most beautiful fucking day. I got this cocksucker here, Mr. Baldy at USC, telling me I'm warned before the meeting starts, sit in my chair, that everybody can't stand, and then he just lets the rules go on, God damn, you think I'm that fucking stupid? Well, I am, man. I don't know nothing. I'm just trying to learn. I'm 53. I'm just beginning to learn. I'm just starting to learn. I'm going to school. All that college shit I had, that don't mean nothing. Now I'm beginning to understand. So July 2023, I'm on the phone with Kevin De Leon on the 90 freeway, and I get pulled over by LAPD. And I'm given a fucking ticket for texting. Well, I'm on my Bluetooth on my fucking phone. See you in court, bitch.
Next, we have Paula Minor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All of them, 3 minutes, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
This is Paula Meyer with Black Lives Matter, LA. I'm speaking on closed session item 5A, the murder of Takar Smith by LAPD in January of this year. This tragic case shows clearly why LAPD should not be the primary responders in mental health crisis cases. Takar Smith suffered from mental instability. On that day in January, his wife walked from her apartment to the Rampart Division desk to specifically ask for
Mr.
mental
President, if I
health.
could ask you to hold her time so that we have this gentleman.
Madam Secretary, please restore her time. Sir, leave the room. Leave the room. Ma'am, we're going to restore your 3 minutes. Apologies for the
Thank you.
rude
Thank you.
interruption. Ma'am, go ahead.
Now, Takar Smith suffered from mental instability. On that day in January, his wife walked from her apartment to the Rampart Division desk specifically to ask for mental health assistance. She wanted to speak with a social worker or mental health worker or mental health team. She did not call 911 for LAPD. She knew how to call the police if she thought they were needed. She was calling for nonviolent mental health help for her husband. Instead of sending help, the person at Rampart sent harm. Seven officers showed up. Imagine 7 aggressive police bursting in on you when you are already not feeling well. LAPD is not trained to help a person in mental health crisis. They have admitted that. To date, LAPD has killed over 15 of their citizens. And in the past, LAPD has publicly stated that the number of people killed by LAPD disproportionately were suffering from mental health crisis. LAPD is trained to solve problems by using violent solutions. The tools of their work are tools of violence intended to hurt, harm, and kill to resolve a problem. They're guns, tasers, etc. LAPD must be removed from the mental health crisis calls. This case should be deemed out of policy because LAPD should never have responded in this manner. They should not. That was out of policy. They should have waited for those who are trained in mental health assistance. Those should have been called, either the teams, social workers, or whatever. As this incident occurred early in the day, there was time to get a mental health team. There was time to wait for mental health assistance. This man, Takar Smith, should not have been murdered by LAPD for being ill. This case is out of policy, and incidents like this must be stopped. They must be stopped. Chief Moore is responsible for how our officers respond. And Chief Moore, I join the cry of saying, it's time for you to go. We need change. LAPD must change. They're getting all the money from the city. Then we need better service. Stop killing people in mental health crisis. I yield my time.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
The next speaker is Jonathan Foster.
Good morning. I just want to quickly start with Kathleen Rosen. In my opinion, is a two-faced jerk. So I'm going to play my comments from last week. And I want you to tell me, did I say anything that the Latinos are lazy? Did I say anything directly about the LAPD, or did I pose a question? Did I say anything about the Santa Monica PD, or did I say anything about USC, University of California? Listen. Data drives policy and resource, right, is how black community areas got destroyed and turned over to Latino Mexican areas. The undocumented army, and the best example comes from Nori Martinez turning Korean communities into, quote, little brown people communities. This would redirect resources and votes into Latinos. This would be stripping Koreans of their voice. Are there any Koreans in the LAPD? You know, they're binary, they're little brown people. This has happened to the black community, and there was never a recording of stripping black people of their communities, their resources, and their voting voice. And there was never a recording of it. When government people want to make a policy they cannot enact, they have to create data to drive policy. Otherwise they couldn't get enacted, so they can make policy to drive resource. Nori Martinez, she was trying to submit false data. She should be arrested. Then there was Gil Cedillo on a radio clip. He said, quote, "These conversations happen all over LA." He's trying to make it okay that what was being said was okay. The most important thing to say here is that during this person making comments about me, I saw Kalanche and the city attorney having a, she needs a cam. We need to know what they said when they were talking. They need a cam. The LA sheriff has in Hawaiian Gardens the recordings about how the gangs were targeting black families to shoot them to get them out of the other. In 1920 to 1935, in Dogtown was only Irish and Italians, and they shot them all up out of the town after 15 years. Kalanchi said that she lived in a community that didn't call the police for fear of gang retaliation. Nori speaking that they have to do this to secure being re-elected. That's a hate crime. So submitting false data to drive policy and resources. That's what Abrams said. I want to like you, but you're running me off a cliff. How I'm dead now.
Next, we have Joseph.
Hello, my name is Joseph Johnson. Can you hear me clearly?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
I believe it was item 2 about the fire under the freeway.
Okay, 1 minute.
I would like to say that was there any type of structural prevention being put into play during the years that that place has been open, that place has been down there, because it's very much susceptible for anything to happen by people who simply are just walking by. It was not a safe area to begin with, and I hope it is not just relegated to the fact that they say that someone started the fire and it was caused by arson. Was the area protected to begin with to prevent arson? Was it structurally prepared to prevent arson? This is a question that needs to be answered, because that area was a fire hazard for years. I yield my time.
The next speaker, Jason R.
Okay. So, Rasha, you tweeted out that you were heartbroken at the Officer Cunningham's family, including his young children. You called his death truly senseless and tragic. And somehow, these types of sentiments and words from a sitting police commissioner are never offered to someone whose life is stolen at the hands of this department. Fitting that the murder of Takar Smith is taken up at the meeting after Veterans Day, given the Iraqi war criminal the LAPD took in by the name of Joseph Zizzo executed Takar Smith. Now, what was Takar's quote-unquote crime? Being black, schizophrenic, and in the midst of a mental health crisis. 7 bullets for a black man on his knees, with his left arm contracted as the muscle seized up from being tased, and 2 bikes that formed a barrier between your officers and him. Yet Joseph Zizzo and Nicolas Alejandre still saw a need to fill him with bullets. One of Takar's last words were, "Talk like a human to me." And that despite his mental state, Takar knew what your officer saw him as? A target, a suspect, the enemy? Does this commission know that this isn't Joseph Zizzo's first time shooting someone with schizophrenia? He shot 16-year-old Moises Palacios in 2013, who thankfully survived. Will any of you ask why Zizzo took the lead with Takar given this history? Yesterday, the LAPD released a body-worn video of your shooting of Eric Collier, another black man. It is so brazen that y'all would tell the lie that Earl ran into the street and charged at an officer. The video shows the complete opposite. Earl ran into the street to get away from a gang of officers firing 40 millimeters and with their weapons drawn. He had no idea Raymond Sawyer, his shooter, was even in the street since he had been looking behind at the stampede of officers that were actively threatening him as he made his way from the sidewalk into the street between two cars. I also want to point out that while your officers were freaked out over Earl, pedestrians expressed no fear as he ran past them, with many carrying on as if nothing had happened. Now, the mother of Earl Collier came in here last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, and wasn't given an opportunity to speak because there's no procedure for readmitting individuals not responsible for willfully disturbing the orderly conduct of a meeting. Weird that this commission has been around for 103 years, and this board seems to have a policy for everything except that. It took this department 27 days to release the name of Oscar Lopez's killer, Sean Steelman. After reviewing the video, the body-worn video, it's apparent why that was the case. Your own news release says that both men in the vehicle were clearly intoxicated, and any person reviewing that video could tell they were beyond comprehending what was going on as they were being awakened by your officers. They were slow and incoherent. And the 911 call wasn't for Oscar pointing his gun at someone, threatening the public or anything like that. It was because someone saw him with it. And Sean Steelman determined that was worthy of a death sentence. He literally shot Lopez point blank with a shotgun. That's what this fucking department's all about. That's the reverence for human life that Moore is always talking about. Fuck y'all.
Next, we have Andrew Grabner.
Okay, I would like speak on all items getting the same amount of time the chief got. All right, so I'd first like to note that it's absolutely ridiculous how picky and choosy the chief is on who he responds to for when people ask questions. Like he'll answer all the questions, that some of the more racist, bootlickers that call into the meetings sometimes will ask, but he then refuses to answer questions from the brother of Dakar Smith. So yeah. All right, the chief's report should be limited to 3 minutes at every meeting, unless you also expand our public comment time to match whatever he takes. If we're only getting 3 minutes, then he only gets 3 minutes. The chief is not special. The chief should not get extra privileges and time. The LAPD is still shooting and killing people. All that stuff. So, and the Chief Moore is just so corrupt, so racist. He needs to go. Let's see. We have the consent agenda. Let me pull it up here. We have court reporter services. Along with that, you're destroying records again. You always destroy records so quickly, and then people request them, but it takes so long to even get the records to us in the first place. Let's see. We have we have more donations. We got donations from the Police Foundation for expensive holiday parties. We have the chief's expense reports for the conference in Temecula, it looks like. It's the conference in Temecula that was apparently, $610. Did you even stay overnight more? Why did you spend $610 to go to East San Diego County? What are you spending all that money on? Are you just staying at, the presidential suite at the 5-star, hotels and on taxpayer dollars. I mean, what are you doing? It's costing that much money every time you go somewhere. You're spending like thousands of dollars a year on your partying or whatever the heck it is you're charging to the taxpayer expense. Justice for Takar Smith. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous that these kinds of things even keep happening. Like,
Thank you. And I'd like to ask people to be seated after you complete your comment card. We've got plenty of seating in the front of the room. Thank you.
The next speaker, I can't read the card. It looks like Lindarity or something like Lynderity. No. Okay, then Michael Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's plenty of seating in the front. Would you please take a seat? Thank you very much. Mr. Williams, go ahead.
There's a false narrative that is propagated by this police department and other police departments across the country that is a necessity in order to do your job, that you must shoot people. You must kill people, or you have to kill people in certain instances because that is a part of the job. Well, that is a lie. Big lie. If you look at the top searches of the most safe countries in the world, if you look at the top 5, the aggregated number of people killed by the police in those countries is 3. Denmark, New Zealand, and Portugal have similar population sizes to Los Angeles. Their aggregated score is 2. They have histories of mental health, people with mental health in their country. They have people with knives and guns in their country. Actually, in all 3 countries, ownership of guns is a right. Yet they significantly kill less people than the LAPD does every single year. I know what you're going to do. I know you're going to go back there and say Dakar had a mental health episode. He had a knife at some point. Whether he had the knife when he was shot, is not clear from the video, and is actually disputed because he was tased before you shot him. So, you all will go back into that room and tell the community, Chief Moore will tell the community, that we had to shoot the car. Because that is the duty of the police. The police cannot do their job without killing people like Takar. When that is a lie. That has not been shown by any data or statistics that I have ever seen or has ever been produced. You all kill people because you do it, because you know you can get away with it. You know that by killing Dakar, you can create a narrative and a lie that most of the public will believe, and you will have no consequences. The difference between this department and other departments across the world is they don't hang their hat on the fact that they killed 2 less people than they did last year. They hang their hat on the fact that they killed no people. And they put in place policies and procedures and institutional programming that facilitates them not having to kill people. You all don't do that. You all make excuses. You persecute the people that call you out, and then you lie to the public. Justice for Dakar Smith.
Next, we have Mr. C.
Okay. I would like to start by addressing a request that we remove the draconian terms, diversity, equity, and inclusion, because these are anti-whiteism terms. You all know it. We all know it. They're only used to create an otherism of white people. And white's also another one of these gaslighting terms. My skin color may be not brown, but Europeans are very diverse people. If you read some history, you'll find out. And I'm going to go off from that, and I'm going to address the religion and hate crime czar, Chief Moore, who talks about being careful about they're watching over the Jewish and the Muslim hate crimes going on. But they always forget about the Catholic hate crimes that have occurred in Los Angeles. We have the Junipero Serra statue was torn down by a savage group. I don't know who they are. They're a bunch of jerks. Well, actually, I do know who they are. The LAPD doesn't know who they are. And the Italian Catholic Church, St. Peter's, that was also vandalized, and nothing was ever done. So it seems like you're only covering the Jews and the Muslims, but you forget about the Catholics who are Christians, and those hate crimes that happen, nothing's done because they never solved them, and that was June 2020 and October 2021. Weird, isn't it? I don't understand why the police commission is doing identity politics still. What's this about? Why? Why don't you address the actual issues that are happening? When they spray paint a church, I don't care what it belongs to. I don't care if it's a Protestant church, a Catholic, it's a hate crime. They defaced the front of a Catholic church in Los Angeles, nothing's done. They tear down statues of Catholic saints, nothing's done. Oh, but don't tear anything down that belongs to the Muslims. Don't damage one of their things or go after them. These are property crimes, but they're still hate crimes. So anyway, I yield my time.
Madam Secretary, next speaker.
The next speaker is Hamid Khan.
So Michael Moore started out by speaking about the Zionist apartheid state of Israel. And one thing and my condolences and to the Takar Smith family so Israel and Israeli Defense Forces work very closely with the LAPD and a lot of these other agencies, law enforcement agencies. And one of the things that they go back and continue to learn is to how to better hone in the skills to continue to exterminate the undesirable and the unwanted. Just as the Palestinians are human animals, black folks were legally 3/5 human. So how do you deal with that 3/5 human? You just exterminate them, and you just mass murder and exterminate and kill people. So that's what we are looking at because we continue to see week after week families of loved ones who have been murdered by the LAPD. But the murder is in policy. Carlos Ocanio was a resident of Skid Row, had a mental health condition, no smart team, they murdered him. Charlie Africa was having a mental health condition, no smart team, they murdered him. 2015, Grishario Mack. And Grishario Mack was murdered inside Crenshaw Mall, which has been designated as a crime zone, officially designated as a laser zone by the LAPD. This is how murder is mapped out. This is how murder and extermination of people is mapped out. Kenny Watkins, Keith Bursey were murdered inside these zones which have been designated as high crime zones and crime triggers because they happen to be in South Central Los Angeles. So that's in policy, but what do they do? Because there are two items again today, one on body camera and comparing that with other cities, a fraud that came out as a reform in 2013 for officer misconduct. We released a report 10 years ago about body cameras, a facade of false reform to expand surveillance, and that's exactly what's going on, how that'll be misused or even used at all. And exactly what's going on right now. Then they bring in the Robocop or the robot dog, Spot. So now this is where we are going because this is what the Israelis have been using on the Palestinians. So just as we speak about black liberation, we'll continue to fight back because, again, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free as well. So this is a global issue. This is a global partnership. This is on a worldwide level that where the undesirable, the unwanted, the surplus humanity has to be treated in a particular way and exterminated, but we'll keep on fighting. And thank you so much for being here.
We have the Los Angeles Police Protective League.
Can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
I'd like to speak on all items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
We stand with and support our officers, the men and women that go out there and do this every single day without waiting to be recognized. I'd like to point out that it is not your job to be manipulated by the mob. It is your job to decide if an officer has acted within policy or not. I'd like to point out some issues that we have. On October 24th, the Board of Police Commission addressed the Keenan Anderson matter. Mr. Anderson appeared to be fleeing from an accident where other motorists had injuries that he probably caused. He died 3 hours later at the hospital with cocaine in
I'm
his
going to ask the
system.
speaker to hold for a moment. We are going to allow the speaker the same courtesy during the 3 minutes that you get in here. If we don't allow the speaker the courtesy, you will be disrupting the meeting and I will have the room cleared. Speaker, please continue.
Thank you very much. The callers that day who were pro-police were drowned out and not heard over the disorderly chants. That's not democracy. That's not fair. That's not decorum. After cooperating briefly with the officers, he then ran into traffic. This commission, by its actions, is telling the officers to let the suspect go. They cannot use reasonable force to detain a suspect. The citizens who were injured in the traffic collision because of Mr. Anderson's actions probably would not agree with the commission. I'll hold until the room is quiet for me, please.
Sir, please allow the speaker to continue and conclude their remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. On page 27 of the chief's report, the chief noted that Anderson was violently resisting the officer's attempts to take him into custody. He noted the use of the taser to be effective in assisting officers to take control of Anderson. What did you, the commissioners, base this decision on? It is my understanding that the rules require the commission to write up your rationale for your decision. Why hasn't this been done and made public? The tasings were out of policy. If you had found 4 in policy and 2 out, we would be disappointed, but at least we would know that it was based on the department's experts. It is my feeling that the decision slapped every officer in the face and punched them in the gut. Every expert said at least 4 were in policy. The officers followed the standards, and yet our officers are suffering. It seems like the only person who helped was Carl Douglas. Douglas is a supporter of the mayor and part of the mayor's transition team, which appointed most of this commission. It appears that there is a conflict of interest to have these commissioners then vote to help his civil case. I'm also going to point out that it seemed like Mr. Carl Douglas was allowed to speak for a long time compared to the 3 minutes that other callers get. And I'm going to go ahead and yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
The next speaker is Matios Kadei.
Before I start, I just want to say it's absurd that we heard from the police lobby in public comment, the people's voice. This is a fucking sham. My name is Matios with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. Time and time again, we've said this board is a veneer of legitimacy so that the LAPD can continue to dole out the anti-black violence that Dakar Smith's family is grieving, right? That we're seeing today. Another kind of weapon to bolster that legitimacy is the policies that we've just brought up. These audits around the robot dog, around body-worn video, and that happens in a number of ways. The LAPD often bolsters the existence of policy as a softening of violence, right? We heard this around the efforts to get the robot dog. The LAPD has policy, therefore this won't be harmful. This won't be anti-black. In truth, the intent is anti-black, so it's all anti-black and harmful. And in reality, for a lot of these policies, the content, the language of it doesn't actually change anything. So we can look at the example of facial recognition technology, right? When LAPD was found out to be using facial recognition technology, what they did is they rolled out a policy that then called it photo comparative technology, the mechanics of which didn't change anything, right? Facial recognition technology still exists in LA. We also see policy being used to expand harm, right? So around body-worn video, we see that there's a 40-day time limit that LAPD has to release body-worn footage through. 40 days is plenty of time for the LAPD to craft a narrative, right? To edit that video, to help sanitize their violence and demonize a victim of violence, right? And then we have instances where these audits of the robot dog legitimize acquisition of military surveillance equipment and seal these lucrative relationships with companies like Boston Dynamics. And, you know, we just saw an episode of Disinformation with a man who was on a bus asleep, and, you know, they sent a robot dog to handle this situation and retrieved what was reported as a semi-automatic pistol to CBS. This story flew. Later on, after this disinformation had been disseminated, we find out, in fact, it was a BB gun. Anybody can tell the difference between a BB gun and a semi-automatic pistol. The purpose was to sow disinformation. The purpose was to legitimize this technology, solidify that relationship with Boston Dynamics, expand this department's budget. That's literally what it was. So these policies, again, just a total sham. Around hate crime reporting, again, it's we talked about this last week too, but the LAPD bolsters hate crimes, right? We talk about even the alluding to Christopher Wray, who sent out this narrative around copycat Hamas attacks, right? And emboldened white supremacists to dole out violence against Muslims. Even the language Chief Moore is using, right? Around the Israeli-Hamas war, you know, categorizing and sanitizing this act of genocide against Palestinians, using the language of Hamas to describe, a language of terrorism, right? To describe children that are being slaughtered, right? This is a sanitization. And even when you're talking about working with universities and high schools, we know this is a Zionist entity. We know that Errol Southers is a visiting professor, again, in Israel, in the International Institute of Counterterrorism. We know that you're alluding to frameworks to surveil high schoolers, to surveil universities.
Thank you for
and
your
conflate
comments.
anti-Semitism with.
Madam Secretary, next speaker. We will take 3 more speakers in the room and 3 more speakers on Zoom as we've gone 1 hour. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Larry.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All of them, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Larry Hanna, the independent counsel with the Los Angeles Police Commission. The Los Angeles Police Commission on October 24th slapped all the officers in the face. I was present at that police commission meeting to witness one of the most disappointing, politically pandering and abuse of powers that I've ever seen. On the agenda was the closed session, was the in-custody death of Keenan Anderson. The theater of the absurd began very early, as it does with people making noise and drowning other people out. But it was different this time. Carl Douglas was there. He was present. As one other caller mentioned, he was allowed to speak and speak and speak and give an closing statement for his client, the 5-year-old son of Mr. Anderson. We think it went to 8 or more minutes. He was not cut off. He was not silenced like everyone else. This is unfair and not right. The next speakers then were drowned out and they were not heard. This is not democracy. The police commission found all 6 of the tasings out of policy on a 4-1 vote. An administrative disapproval. A source close to us told us that the one commissioner was very angry and stormed out of the room. She stormed out of the room. Whether that is true or not, that's what we've been told. I think everybody should storm out of the room when there's votes like that. The commission also voted 5-0 that there was lethal force used. These officers, all of them said there was no lethal force. They did not mean to touch the neck. This was all incidental. And then to find it out of policy, that's just wrong. On page 27 of the chief's report, he says that Anderson was violently resisting the officers. He noted that the use of the taser was effective in assisting the officers to take Anderson into custody. What did you, the commissioners, base your decision on? Is it in writing? It should be. That's what it's supposed to be. And we don't know why it's not. You didn't serve the public. You didn't serve the city. You didn't serve anyone but to help Carl Douglas with his case. That's wrong. The officers are not going to forget. It's wrong, and you should not do this type of things. Remember, Carl Douglas was on the mayor's team that helped pick some of the commissioners. This is wrong then for you to give him the extra time to let him be there. and then to treat the officers so badly. It's clear you don't want the officers out there making arrests. You don't want them doing their job because you're not giving them the tools. You're not helping them. You're hurting them. And that's just not right. But thank
The next speaker, Melina Abdullah.
So again, before I start, I want to implore you to let everyone who took time off of their jobs, off of school, to be here to speak in the name of Takar Smith, to speak. We should all be able to speak. This idea that you have an hour or 45 minutes, that's a rule you created for yourselves. That is not a rule, that is not a law. And you can do what's right and represent the people you're supposed to represent. Let the people speak. I want to uplift first that Takar Smith is more than a hashtag. Takar Smith is a father of 6 children. He's a black man who is doing everything that this world says black men don't do. He's been with his wife for 11 years. He's an active father who raised his children, who miss him dearly. You put out a narrative about Takar Smith that he is somehow deserving of his own death. You put out a video that made it seem like it's unusual to have a kitchen knife in your own damn kitchen. We have kitchen knives in our kitchens. It's important to remember that the apartment that you stormed when his wife begged for mental health support was already clear. You could have given it time for mental health resources to come and calm Takar. Instead, you riled him up. Your officers are not fit to respond to mental health crises. I also want to uplift that Michael Moore is lying, as he does often. There is no law preventing him from speaking. There might be rules that he made up or that you made up, but there is no law preventing him from speaking. This family has been asking for answers for more than 10 months, and all you fed them is lies. They got a call from your family liaison saying this was on the agenda, but dissuading them from coming. The only reason they were encouraged to come is because when we saw the public agenda, when Black Lives Matter saw the public agenda, we reached out to the family and said it's important that you be here. We want to make sure that we say that this is an opportunity to say invest in mental health resources for our city. Divest from the police that steal life, that steal Black life, that stole Takar Smith's life. We want to say Michael Moore must go. You must go, Michael Moore. Your time is up. And we want to remind you that this body is supposed to be the oversight body, representing the people of Los Angeles. 2 weeks ago, when you found the killers of Keenan Anderson out of policy, you showed some courage. We're asking you to continue to show courage, to be ethical and moral, and heed the voices of your best angels and say that the murder of Black man, Black father, Black husband, Takar Smith is out of policy. Justice in the name of Takar Smith. Justice in the name of Takar Smith. Justice in the name.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah.
Next, we have Brenda Ramesh.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
Hi, all items and specifically 5A.
Okay, 3 minutes.
My name is Brenda. I'm a resident registered voter living in California in Los Angeles, and I would like to record public comment that Takar Smith's killing by the LAPD is a violation of LAPD policy, and the officers must be held accountable, charged, and convicted for murder. We need to ensure that these officers should have de-escalated. His wife asked for mental health workers to respond to this crisis, and instead officers were sent, and he was shot and killed in his own home. This could have been avoided We need to set a precedent here with how we respond to this killing and show that police officers cannot follow this course of action. Takar's killing was not the course of action that should have been taken. He needed support, and these officers need to be held accountable. Thank you.
Zach Sherwin.
Please restart my time. You need to let everybody who came to this meeting speak, Southers. You make all kinds of little arbitrary exceptions. You tell people in the back standing quietly to sit down when you tolerate multiple disruptions from people who are sitting in the seats. I watched you and the vice chairperson of this meeting. And by the way, why are you the president and she's the vice chairperson? Make it match, vice president or chairperson. Anyways, I watched the two of you pass notes to each other during another speaker's comments, blatantly. So make another exception to the rules and let everybody speak who came down. Takar Smith's brother said it all. Why are we here? Why are we here if you guys are conducting yourselves the way that you are? This meeting is worse than worthless, and it is wild to watch you hide behind the bureaucracy that you have to shelter you from the central fact of what happened today, which is that LAPD officers killed a man who is having a mental health crisis. Your performative facial expressions, Chief Moore, those aw shucks, I just wish this could have gone a different way. Even that little smile you're pulling on right now. I'm not talking to amuse you or to make you chuckle. I'm disgusted by the way you comport yourself. And Commissioner Shields, Vice Chairperson, same to you, these distressed faces that you make when Takar Smith's brother said, I know you want to say something, and you make this face, oh, I just wish I could do something. You're the Vice Chairperson of this commission. You don't have to just sit there and make a face. The lawyer has to step in and say, oh, we can't. We'd love to say something as much as we would just love to speak to this family who's forced to come down to this headquarters and come into the belly of this beast, this environment bristling with police officers. Look how many there are. You forced this family to come down. And then Chief Moore comes in with this, look, I'd love to say something and I'll do it later. And you, De La Guerra, you coward, speaking up and saying they'd love to, but they can't. It's revolting to watch. The way you enforce the rules, make them up selectively, while purporting on your website to be the citizen's voice in police affairs. It is an Orwellian distance between what you purport to be and the way that you actually are. It's dystopian and it's lying. You are the wrong tool for this job, board. Just as armed police officers are the wrong response to a man having a mental health crisis, you adjudicating this matter and ruling these officers in or out of policy, you're the wrong tool for the job. You're a rubber stamp, you're a sham, and it's insulting that you purport to be the citizen's voice in police affairs. You too, Briggs. The reception you gave that family made me sick. Your lack of humanity. Do you think that you are the citizen's voice in police affairs? If so, how do you live with yourselves? And if not, what are you doing here? Hyundais and Kias is what you chose to talk about today, Chief Moore. Shame on you guys.
Next, we have Steve Rogers.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
The last time I attended a meeting virtually, I was the first speaker, and I was drowned out by the mob there speaking on Mr. Anderson's case. And let me quote BLM, Bolshevist lying Marxists, let the people speak, okay? The mob really doesn't want you to speak if you don't agree with the mob. But there are two sides to every story. And I encourage everyone to take a look at the videos of these incidents that are being discussed. And you will see that LAPD makes every attempt to de-escalate the situation with verbalization. Let me give everyone who is on the receiving end of police force some advice. The best thing to do is to cooperate, okay? The police use a minimal amount of force, but when you resist or you attempt to escape, they have to use force.
Please allow this gentleman to speak.
Escalate to lethal. They tried to drown me out last time. I will not be drowned out.
Secretary, can you hold the clock? please
Thank
allow
you,
this
sir.
gentleman his
Please
3
let me talk,
minutes?
and please restore my
He is-
time. The last time I spoke, I did not have my time restored to its original 3 minutes, and I was interrupted from the very beginning of that meeting.
Okay.
And I
Continue.
resent, thank you. I resent not being allowed to speak by the mob. Okay, the rules have to be enforced. People need to be arrested for 403 PC of the Penal Code, disturbing a public meeting. How many times has that penal code actually been utilized in an arrest? You're there, Chief Moore. You have the sergeant at arms. You have officers at your disposal. Make the arrest. There should be consequences for the continual interruption of meetings. It is outrageous. If you want to build trust and have confidence of the people, you have to enforce the law and the rules impartially. Now, there are many things I wanted to talk about at the last meeting, but I had to address what happened in the Anderson
Sir, you
incident.
need to remain on topic.
I am on topic. I'm talking about the Anderson incident. That's within the purview of the police commission. So I am talking about that, and then you interrupted me. Maybe you should educate everyone on what the Brown Act actually means. Maybe a preamble at the beginning, maybe an attachment on the website. I'm glad that the LAPPL, the Police Protective League, had a chance to speak, that the attorneys spoke, and they spoke very well and to the issue of politicalization of.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you continue with this behavior,
I don't know if I'm being
we
heard
will
or
have
not, but
to
I'm going to keep
stop
speaking.
the meeting.
Let the
Please
people
allow him
speak.
to finish his last minute.
Enforce the rules. If you go back on YouTube, I was not drowned out as somebody thought that I was drowned out, but I'm going to continue to speak, and I will be here at every meeting speaking on behalf of the truth for community policing. Now, we had 4 LA County deputy sheriffs commit suicide since the last time I spoke here. What are we doing proactively for officers' mental health? We talked about mental health today. And by the way, the LAPD is very well trained in dealing with mental health situations and respond to thousands of calls regarding mental health. Unfortunately, some of them devolve into the use of deadly force. That's not the fault of the officers. They don't know who has mental health issues or not. When someone has a knife trying to throw it at you or lunge at you, you have to use deadly force in defense of your life immediately. Condolences
Ladies
to
and
the
gentlemen, you are disrupting the meeting. This is the first and last warning.
Cunningham, to Officer Cunningham and his family and friends, condolences to the officers that committed suicide. Let's proactively do what we can for the officers on the mental health issue. I know Southers is very involved in that.
Madam Secretary, please announce the next speaker.
The next speaker is Akili. What is the name? I'm sorry?
Sir.
The correct name?
Did you call Akili?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Akili with BLM. First to the family, I want to say my condolences. I said them 10 months ago when this happened. But more importantly to the board, this is a classic example of why you do not send armed response for mental health or anywhere, but certainly for mental health. All the evidence, all of the material that you have points to that this is what you don't do. And the concept of protect and serve is really about control and suppress, because that's what happened in the case of the Smith family. And we here have come here every week and we hear you talk about de-escalation. It's been a policy that's been on your books for many years, over 50 years. But it is never applied when it comes to black people. As a matter of fact, it is escalated when it comes to us. And so it's a position that's rarely applied or followed, but you make reference to it. You make reference to the need for trusting you all. This is the reason why you are not trusted. This is the reason, and the Smith family, who simply wants simple answers to what happened. I mean, one of the values, I think, of the work that Black Lives Matter does is we give people at least comfort, support for at least finding out what happened. That's a simple request. So the first response for me is eliminate. And I don't think, and I know we made some reference to training. I don't think there's enough training that you can ever go through because you're trained first to control the situation and then to suppress the danger. That's what you're trained at. So I don't want to see police ever coming to a position where there is a mental health issue because your inclination, your training, what you apply is control and suppress. And so I want to once again offer my condolences to the family. Thank you. And we stand with you because we are here to end state-sanctioned violence so that there are never again a Takar Smith or a Keenan Anderson or a Grishario Mack or a Waukesha Wilson or all the other names that we call out because of police violence that exists in this society. Fire Chief Moore. Say his name! Say his name!
The next speaker is Daisy. Is there Daisy? Okay. Jamie Cusick.
On the agenda this week is a body-worn video policies comparative analysis. This document is patently absurd, and the first most glaring element of its absurdity is that it refers to itself as a fact sheet. I've read through it a few times now, and I've yet to encounter a single fact in its 17 pages. Let's take this little gem. Body-worn video and the policies about it aim to enhance transparency, accountability, and public trust. I'm confident there is not a single person in this room, including the commissioners, including the police, who believes body-worn video aims to enhance any of those things. We all know that the theoretical existence of body-worn video, and its existence is almost always only theoretical, is intended to absolve, exonerate, and protect the career of whichever officer was wearing the body camera at the expense of the life of whichever human being they were harassing, attacking, or killing at the time of the critical incident. Chief Shithead's analysis claims that LAPD stands out as the sole agency to have well-defined inspection procedures publicly available on their website. He also tries to pat himself on the back with the idea that LAPD's policy focuses on specific objectives, while the other agencies opt for a more general and less structured overview without predefined objectives. What the hell? The only predefined objective of LAPD's policy is to cover its own ass. Who gives one single fuck what you claim your policies are when we all know, based upon case after case and stolen family member after stolen family member, that you only record footage when you happen to feel like it. You release it whenever the mood happens to strike you, and only then in the face of immense pressure from the community. And you tamper with it freely, and even when you aren't able to edit it to tell your own story, you still brazenly lie about the literal physical images on the screen. Southers, back in August, when you requested this analysis to be made and presented to the commission, how could you have expected anything less than the bullshit that comprises this entire report? Your first mistake was to allow this piece of shit to report on himself in any capacity. Police cannot investigate themselves. Anyway, we know that wasn't actually a mistake of yours, Southers, to have Chief Shithead report on himself. It's a deliberate attempt to obscure the truth and inhibit justice. And the fact that this motherfucker can sustain the implication that LAPD is more forthright and responsible than other cities' departments over the course of one sentence, let alone 17 pages, is all the proof anybody could need to know that the purpose of policing is to systematically oppress Black, brown, poor, and unhoused people. If the chief of the most murderous department in the country can be said to be doing a better job in any way than any other department that is less murderous, then it follows that the goal of policing is to commit murders.
Thank you for your comment. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
The next speaker is Vernine. Vernine, please.
Of sitting on this sham commission, which proves itself a sham every day that you don't get rid of
Madam Secretary, next speaker.
The next speaker, please. Vernine.
You know, this is a travesty that as citizens of this city, we have to come into an environment to talk about an agency that we use 50% of our money that basically is killing the citizens here. This particular situation that you have a protective lead allowed to call on a phone to sit and position itself as if every action that you take is in policy. Takar Smith's murder should be declared out of policy for this board because you came into this man's house after his wife came and asked for assistance, mental health assistance. He's in his own damn kitchen with a knife that he should be allowed to have in his kitchen. I know the size of that kitchen. You had more officers in that room that are allowed to be in that damn house. He was killed in his house, killing somebody and shooting them 7 times in their house. 7 times in their house after you tased him, and he was brought to his knees. That is what your own body cam shows. It should be cleared out of policy. The other thing is, this department should not be able to receive any damn donations from anybody because you're taking more of our budget from the citizens that deserve to be for our houseless individuals out in the streets. We should not be sitting and taking RVs that now we're going to decide that we're going to sell these people's RVs out in the street. And we know RVs in our city are being used for houseless individuals. That's a damn criminalization of our houseless people that are here. But I would want to say we need to have respect for this family. They're asking for answers. They've been asking for the past 10 months. We should stop criminalizing people that we kill because we criminalized Takar Smith for his own illness, that we took no regard of a wife asking for assistance. You have left her now by herself raising her 3 kids. His 6 kids will never have the opportunity to have a father in the house that was somebody that was there in the house for his children. So it, again, should be declared out of policy. And the protective lead should not be allowed to talk to this commission because they are not citizens of this city. I'm a citizen of this city, and I should not have to come in this particular location to say what I have to say to the police commission that is for the people. If I'm talking about the police, why the hell am I coming to a police building to be able to say that? It's kind of backwards here. It's backwards. I'm appalled, and my brother was killed 40 years ago by this police department. By this police department. So when somebody tells me about some damn reform, I got news for you. I got 40 years to show you what ain't been damn reform. Ain't enough damn training that can go forth.
Thank you, ma'am.
Olivia. The next.
So I don't even know where to start. You look ridiculous all the time. I'm not gonna look at you, I'm gonna look over here. I wanna talk about the word integrity. Takar Smith's brother talked about integrity. Y'all don't know what integrity is. Integrity means meaning what you say, doing what you say you're gonna do, and that your words match up with what you're doing. That's not true. Y'all don't protect and serve. You kill and you lie and you character assassinate. There is no reason that somebody should be blamed for their own death after they have already died. There is no reason that somebody, and y'all supporters, if we think about the people who do support the police, y'all say, oh, there's people in the city who support the police that you might imagine that you're that you're representing when you come over here with this bullshit. We've heard what those people sound like. They're racist, they're white supremacists, and they don't make no goddamn sense, and they don't read, and they don't listen. Those are the people who you represent. The people we have heard calling in today, and the people who come in and say, God bless the police, I love the police, LAPD can't do no wrong. They can't even support a decision that y'all made to find somebody's killing out of policy, because the people who support you only want death. They only want the death of black people. They don't care, even when when you find it out of policy, they don't even like that, because the people who support you support death for our people. That's who you represent. You don't represent us. So it's time that you stop claiming to, and that you need to find this death out of policy as well. Justice for Takar Smith.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
Fajima Bedron.
I'm the clinical director of a mental health program where Takar Smith's wife is a participant at Homeboy Industries. I want to reiterate what was said earlier by so many people. Shamika called for help, appealing to hopefully a PET team, a psychiatric emergency team. That's what they're there for. They weren't sent, the police were sent instead. The operator on the call actually mentioned schizophrenia when referring to Takar Smith, and still they sent the police. It's clear the police force is not trained, nor do they have the education to respond to these calls. The training for a therapist, the education for a therapist is 2 to 6 years, in addition to thousands of hours of training under supervision in order to hospitalize or even hold someone on a 5150 if they're any kind of harm to others. And yet the police come with no help for mental health, with no training really, and respond to these calls. It's a shame. I'd like to speak to Shamika's emotional state. I'm shaking today up here, thinking of what she's been through and what Takar Smith's entire family has been through. She now has to raise these children alone. They have to live without him. She has PTSD. She has depressive symptoms. We are doing everything we can in our department and agency to help her. And I hope that you can think of that when you sleep at night.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
Corey Schmidt. And he will be followed by Sylvester Ani Jr. Did you want to speak?
We're taking everybody in the room. I believe, Madam Speaker, we have Sheila Bates.
All right. Corey Schmidt for the record, all items. Okay, so I was wondering if maybe you guys had some binoculars. If you guys, I don't know. I'm looking for Janice Hahn. Have you guys seen her anywhere? I said something at the meeting, and she's just gone. She canceled the meeting. It's over. I don't know. She's running. I figure it's a take on Where's Waldo. Where's Janny at? Have you guys seen her? Okay, so now that we've gotten past that, I agree with items B and C. But okay, so I'm concerned about this. So we're talking a lot about death today, right? So I'm concerned about the South Bureau Homicide getting a donation. And I'm also concerned about the West LA area getting a donation of, what is that, 181104. Is that? I know who that is. That's Handlebar Jackson, isn't it? I know who sent that. I know that guy. Okay, interesting. Let's see. Okay, and then the next thing we have on the list is personal expense statement for the chief of police. Ooh. Interesting. Let's see. Well, I think the next thing I saw was something about getting rid of RVs, right? Something about getting rid of RVs. I say give him as much fucking money as he wants. If he gets rid of that, I don't know how the fuck we're gonna get rid of that guy. I don't know. But give him as much money. I don't care. You get him out of there, I am down. Okay, so let's see. The next thing was unmanned quadruped. Have you guys seen this shit? All over the city, they got robots coming out. They got robot cars. They've got robot delivering food. You know, I said before they're gonna have robots cops, like real cops, right? I don't know. I'm thinking that's bullshit. I don't think we want that because what I see is it's surveillance, it's rolling surveillance, and you know that's the right to privacy. You know, I know that we did the whole Patriot Act and everything, but like I still believe in privacy. So you know, I think it's bullshit. So I don't know if you guys want to continue that with that Boston Dynamics or whatever, but I see terrible things coming from the robots. So that's my thoughts. I guess keep up the good work.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
Sylvester Ani Jr.
Good morning. My name is Sylvester. I'm here to speak in support of Takar Smith's family. The fact that we have to continue showing up here is a testament that the system of policing does not keep us safe. You know, from the day that Takar was killed on January 2nd, from the day he was born to the day he was killed, he was trying to survive in a system that was not set up for him to succeed. And it was tough, because what policing does, what the system of policing does, is that it takes away from all the resources that keep us safe, that we need to survive and take care of each other and love each other. As it was noted, Takar had mental health issues. You know what worsens mental health issues? Poverty makes that worse. Housing, education. Like, these are the things that actually keep us safe. I looked up in 2027, the salary for an LAPD officer is going to be $97,000. You know who doesn't get paid $97,000? A teacher, a social worker, right? Like that youth mentor that's at the park that can help you along the way, right? Because now the thing is, not only did Takar get killed on January 2nd, but then this department killed a piece of anybody that loved Takar. His wife, his brother, his mother, his kids. I stood with them at his funeral. A brother that was full of life. And that's something that they got to deal with. That they got to pick up the pieces afterwards. The least that this department can do is find them out of policy, because we all know at the end of the day, justice would be Takar would still be here. That's right. That's something that this board can't give them back. All the holidays since January 2nd that the families had to go through for the first time without Takar, that they'll never get again. That's something that I hope everybody that's up there thinks about when they go back and they decide on how they're going to move forward, going forward with this. Because again, policing does not keep us safe, okay? We need to invest in people, in the lives of people, so that they can live full lives and not just try to survive in a system that is set up to either kill them or get them caged in jail. Okay, so justice for Takar Smith's family. I love y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the final speaker, the speaker whose name I pronounced wrong, did you still want to speak? I called Daisy, and then you two first, the last speakers. Daisy? Ladarity. Daisy and Ladarity.
This is Alicia Smith. This is Carl Smith's mother. I just want you to know it wasn't necessary to shoot him 7 times. On his knees. He on his knees and got shot 7 times. What could he do? I want the men to know they gonna feel this. They feel it already. God bless all of you.
Thank you.
Lindarity, please. Shield.
A lot of what has been said to you in many ways is a pathetic attempt to appeal to your morality, sense of justice, compassion, or empathy, whether it be through shame, facts, or other tactics. The thing is, we all know that these are characteristics that each of you severely lack. If it was not the case, you would not be here. But let me remind you of this. You are supposed to be an oversight body, not a rubber stamp body. You are supposed to be civilians and represent us and ensure our safety, not cover up for, make excuses for, or protect cops. History will remember who you are, what you did, and what you did not do. We all walk in here at a time that is convenient for you, but not for community, the community you are supposed to represent. Families who are grieving have to take off time from work and have to walk into the lion's den of LAPD headquarters surrounded by cops. We expect and prepare for the worst because that is what you are. Speaking of the worst, Chief Moore, you have to go. You are a disgrace. Everything LAPD has done in your tenure, every murder, every controversy, every scandal, every act of violence, every dollar that contributes to a bloated police budget that is theft and violence in of itself rests on your fucking shoulders. And we must proverbially chop from the top. If you had any sense, you would walk out right now with your head hung in shame and hand in your letter of resignation. The murder of Takar Smith needs to be ruled out of policy. The cops need to be held accountable. You have the responsibility of holding them accountable, of giving their families some modicum of decency, to give them some form of justice in his name, because you cannot give them real justice. You cannot bring him back. They need to be named, fired, decertified, and prosecuted. This murder is yet another example of why cops should not be involved in mental health calls. His wife called the cops for help, and she got the worst case scenario. Her husband was murdered, not by accident or by mishap, but by design. He was a black man, and cops who hail from the slave catchers who would have put him in a paddy wagon and criminalized him for seeking freedom were the same cops who killed him when he needed help. The answer to mental health calls is not police who kill and terrorize and brutalize and criminalize us, but instead investment in communities that you rob with an inflated police budget. Emergency response to mental health calls should be, oh my goodness, mental health professionals. What a fucking concept. And they should be able to respond as solo responders. That is the bare fucking minimum, and that is common sense. Takar Smith says no.
Thank you. The public comment period has ended.
We have this
We will take the last speaker. Please reset the clock. Thank you. Ma'am, go ahead.
TYNLCITY, tenacity. I'm here to speak on the police report, item 5A, and general public comment. Michael Moore, during your report, you mentioned that you are combating hate crimes. You're looking out for instances of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Between you, mainstream media, right-wing media, there is a trend of the humanity of Muslim people and Palestinian people in particular being an afterthought. It is always Israel first. You are the beneficiary, along with your department, of training from the Israel Defense Forces. You are a beneficiary of the Zionist white supremacist inaction that we are seeing causing genocide right now. And what happens in Palestine sure as hell can happen here. When you meet with French national police and international orders, you're planning for our destruction. We are not blind for what is to come and what you have planned for Los Angeles. You need to step down. You need to be fired. You do not belong here. We are not safe with you. In regard to the video release, I've watched the video, both of Kenny Anderson and Takar Smith. In both instances, you bring police officers that are very dismissive, and they go from being dismissive of the person that they're supposed to be protecting and serving to aggression. It's a switch, instant. It is absolutely incredulous that you would even consider this being in policy, these deaths. Have your wits about you, Police Commission. Make sure that you make at least an inkling of a right decision and make this out of policy, because it is beyond obvious. In that small old kitchen that Takar was in, just wanting to be okay, and you kill him instead. It's unacceptable that we must tolerate all this Black Death, all these afterthoughts of what supposedly is protecting all communities, right? You care about all communities, right? But the biggest hate crimes come from the Los Angeles Police Department. Justice for Takar Smith. Say his name.
Thank you. The public comment period has ended. We will recess for 10 minutes before we go to agenda item number 3. Okay, the commission meeting will resume. We'll move to agenda item 3, consent agenda items. And I've been asked to pull which one is volume 1? You don't have any questions? Okay, cool. So we have a consent agenda items A through H. I'm going to ask that we pull A. I have questions there. Are there any questions on B through H? Commissioner Briggs?
I have none.
Vice President Shields?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Garcia?
None.
Thank you. Okay, if I could have Captain Offenberg? Is that Captain here? On Zoom? Okay. Captain, if you're on Zoom, I have 2 questions.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, are you acting on B through H?
B? Yeah, we probably should. Okay. So before we do anything, let me move to approve the department's report for items. We'll have to do it individually because each one has a different action. So
Yeah, just say approve the items.
okay, we'll approve the items B through H. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
And Commissioner, if I could, just thank you for just a moment. On item H, I want to personally thank the Executive Director, Richard T. Fink, and also the leadership shown by Mayor Bass and the Recreational Vehicle Task Force. This engagement, as the report indicates, has been a longstanding effort to effectively allow a mechanism for the city to deal with one of our more complex problems and challenges, and that is the safety and security of our neighborhoods, the health and safety included, as well as ensuring that people have housing resources. This is a major step for us that, as a city, that I am grateful to see happen. And to Mr. T. Fink, I appreciate your steadfast determination of getting this done.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Mr. T-Fang. So I have 2 questions for the captain. If we could go to the report. Is the captain on Zoom?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. So, Captain, two questions. The first is on page 24. I'd just like to know who manages the city's business inclusion program that's referred to on that page?
One sec, I'm taking a look. Which paragraph so I can identify it quicker?
5.1?
Gotcha.
Thank you.
And your question again, my apologies.
No problem. Just want to know who actually manages the city's business inclusion program to ensure that that takes place. The business inclusion program outreach? Where we
I
talk.
do not know offhand, but I can find out and get back to you.
Okay. And then if we could move to page 30. I just need some education here. Can someone explain what the slavery disclosure ordinance is?
That, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is something that we have to have in all of our contracts.
Okay, great.
It's a general. And then the one on page 24, I will get back to you on who the contact person is on that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from any other commissioners? No. Okay. So with that, I would move that we accept the department's report. Is there a second?
I second that we approve the department's report.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 4, regular agenda items. We have a department's report on the quadruped unmanned ground vehicle, the quarterly inspection report. I have Deputy Chief Kowalski. Chief, good morning.
Good morning, President Southers, Board of Police Commissioners, Chief Moore, Inspector General, City Attorney, Mr. Tiefenk. This is the first quarterly inspection report of the quadruped unmanned ground vehicle. This report covers a period from July 1st to September 30th, 2023. It should be noted that this technology was approved for deployment after all formal training was completed on August 9th, 2023. Its first and only deployment during this inspection period occurred on August 12th, 2023. Our inspection found no deviations from the current policy. The QUGV's only deployment involved an armed suspect who had been involved in an officer-involved shooting with patrol officers. The QUGV was deployed to safely remove what appeared to be a rifle and a pistol from the suspect in a barricaded situation. Because of the QUGV, this incident was resolved without any further violence, and it allowed SWAT officers to render medical aid to the suspect, who was suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Although this is only a small sample size, the purpose of acquiring this technology was to better protect our officers, the involved suspect, and the community by de-escalating dangerous situations in the safest manner possible, and that has proven to be applicable in this one deployment. I'm prepared to answer any questions you have regarding this report.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Briggs?
Chief Kowalski, are you finding any problems with SPOT?
No, sir, we haven't had any problems thus far. I mean, we've been operating now for just over 3 months. Outside of this inspection period, we've had 2 other deployments. We've had the opportunity to continue our communication with Boston Dynamics. It's been even beyond just the partnership and the original purchase. We've expanded our communication with them. They're working closely with us on promoting the brand for public safety. I even had the opportunity to visit their company. While I had a personal visit back east, I was able to come visit them, meet with them, and discuss about our partnership and the continued collaboration. We found that the end users are communicating with them in the company in Massachusetts. So if we do have any problems, we are in discussions with them. But at this point, no problems.
Do you anticipate greater use with the World Cup coming and or the Olympics?
I think right now, what I've seen is, I mean, when we look at whether it's this technology we're using or any other technology, it's very much incident driven. The scope and details of what we're faced with will determine what kind of tools, including technology, will be used. I think that depending on those scenarios that come up in the future, that's possible because I've noticed with our technology cadre that includes up to 16 officers now, that they're becoming more comfortable with this type of technology, whether it's these or our SUAS drones. They have been used as a force multiplier, and I would say it's hard to predict, but I would assume that we'll become more competent and use these possibly in more scenarios, but within our defined policy.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief Kowalski. Given that I understand that there's been more deployments since this first quarter, so we'll be seeing those in our next report. And I hope that those have also all been in policy and have followed all of the protocols that's part of the department policy.
Yes, every incident we've had, we've followed the policy exactly, and that includes permissible uses, scenarios where deployment is appropriate, and then, of course, notifications up through our chain of command to Chief of Police and to our Board of Police Commissioners.
Great. And just in terms of, operationally, are you finding, in the report it indicates, that the incident commander first approves the deployment, and then it goes up the chain to several others, and then Commander Paulson approved the final deployment. Are you finding that those levels of approval easy to obtain in the time necessary for you to do so to properly deploy the technology?
Yes, and what we're finding is our SWAT commanders are communicating very well with our incident commanders at all of our SWAT deployments. And in this scenario, whether it's this tool or SUAS, what then happens is a phone call. In this case, I was unavailable on vacation during that first deployment, but Commander Paulson or usually myself will take the call, as I did in the last two incidents. We're receiving the information, we're vetting it, we're assessing it, ensuring that it's in compliance with our policy, and then we're immediately approving it with no time wasted. We want to ensure that these tools are not only used appropriately, but in a timely manner. And then, of course, Chief Moore is immediately notified that this technology is being deployed.
Thank you, Vice President Shields. Commissioner Garcia.
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned there was 15 individuals on the team that's allowed to maneuver.
Let me clarify. So we have 16 people assigned to our technology cadre. That means they're trained in various aspects of different technology. I mean, we have other robotics. For the sake of when we were approved for Boston Dynamics, we received training by the company for 6 officers during the period of August 8th and August 9th. And all 6 of those officers are available specifically to be trained with the quadruped unmanned ground vehicle. So to clarify your question, it would be currently 6.
Got it. And it's 2-day training?
2-day training, yes.
Do you feel that's sufficient? And really what I'm getting at is, if we were to move forward with more of this, what are the qualifications or experiences or sort of eligibility requirements for officers to be able to control these units?
It's what we're finding, as I mentioned about the capabilities and competencies of our SWAT officers and their use with technology, generally we're finding that they pick this up very quickly. It's very much similar to using a console that I think many people use today, playing different gaming systems or platforms, and the officers are very comfortable with it. I think even during the 2-day period, we had the opportunity to have Chief Moore come out, be part of that observation and training. And since then, we've also had visitors from other departments actually see our officers operate this equipment in training scenarios and show them how to do it. So I think it's, in terms of additional officers, we're always assessing that. I mean, our cadre are always changing and evolving, and we'll develop more training to include additional officers if needed.
Got it. And in terms of engaging the public to see it in action and really more to understand what it is there to do and not do, really more of like a public relations sort of campaign or education campaign. Have you guys thought about that or implemented that?
Well, I think I'd like to highlight, I mean, last week's incident that was involved, again, not in the inspection period, but everyone is familiar with. This happened at a time when traffic congestion was, we were at probably a commuting period during the morning in Hollywood area. Media had responded to this incident. So the media immediately put some footage out of this incident and highlighted it on multiple local media channels here in Los Angeles. I think those instances are good publicity for us, and our media relations work very closely with our local media in that respect as well. I even received a phone call from the marketing department on Friday from Boston Dynamics, who had seen the footage and were very pleased with it because they want to ensure that their product is being promoted in a positive manner, as we are, especially to support public safety. Media is a good leverage for us here in Los Angeles to promote that brand. And again, we'll continue to showcase its capabilities to make the community safe in any way possible.
And Commissioner, if I could add to this, the QUGV, has, it is a mechanical tool. It has limitations, but it certainly has strengths as to its versatility. And we see the increased usage, meaning that more than 100 barricaded suspect calls is our history, 120, 130. In fact, these last few years, they've actually been on the increase of dangerous individuals armed with firearms and other weapons in which a use of a robotic tool, whether it be the QUGV or it be a small UAS, offers us the ability to de-escalate without putting our people in harm's way. And also ensuring the individual in which we're dealing with that our effort is to communicate and to de-escalate. We have displayed this tool in certain gatherings, if you will, in a public sense. For instance, in a recent True Blue Police Foundation event, this along with the other tools that we have at our availability, so that the public can be aware of how its utility and how it's being used. We have not gone into town halls or largers because, in all candor, some of the experience we've seen in other agencies is that it has created, if you will, a misimpression that it's actually autonomous, or that it actually has some type of a personality, or that it has, is not just a robotic machine, that it's something more. Even frankly, as much as the common term of it being called an animal's name is something that we avoid. So at this point, we believe our best gesture, our best effort of orienting the public to it is to show it in the context of its use. Barricaded individual inside of a bus, armed with what's believed to be a firearm. An individual who's armed with another weapon and which is barricaded and otherwise would require us to approach on a force-on-force option, which we want to avoid. So this will take some time to orient and to overcome, if you will, some of the marketing, if you will, and some of the easy associations that can be made because of its visual characteristics.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chief. Chief, you actually segued into my next question, and this may take a little bit of research. I know this was a barricaded suspect that's been documented in this quarter. I just wanted to know how many barricaded suspect calls we had during that quarter, because I know SWAT routinely has barricaded suspect calls each week. So if you could let us know how many they had that quarter, that'd be helpful.
To be specific, you want the July 1st to September 30th, or since we adopted?
The quarter that's being reported.
Okay, we'll have that for you.
Thank you.
Sir, that's easy.
My second question, to the extent that you can, what conditions would dictate the deployment of the QUGV instead of the other robotics that we have to assess explosive devices or other explosions, which the other robotics typically do? So why would we opt for the new robotics as opposed to the traditional ones that have worked so well so far?
Well, if it was a scenario involving an explosive and we had bomb squad, I mean, bomb squad has their tools to go downrange that you're very familiar with. I think, and if I was to put a scenario where QUGV may be involved in that, it would be if it was, we didn't have the ability to enter that location. Like say, we've highlighted the fact that we can enter locations like the QUGV can open doors or it can climb areas. I think if our current inventory by bomb squad could not get close enough, the QUGV would be an option to be able to assess that area. And also, maybe in a scenario where we have a subway or platform where there's maybe a hazardous material close to what you're talking about, we would be able to, the QUGV could go down there safely and assess it without putting operators down there. I mean, that would be two just scenarios I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering if the QUGV doesn't render the other options obsolete at some point.
No, I still think we're still using, in these scenarios with SWAT, I mean, we're still using our other technology with our I-Core robots and other throwables. Again, I think there are situations where the QUGV just wouldn't be practical. And that could be sometimes when we need to just assess a room that we can't get to, we might have a throwable, one of our I-Cores that goes in and it's a recon robot and we can toss it into a window. You can assess an area. That would probably be a scenario where we couldn't use the QUGV as well.
Thank you, Chief. If there are no more questions or comments, I would vote that we approve or make a motion that we approve the department's report and transmit to the City Council for the QUGV for the first quarter. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. We will now move to regular agenda item 4B, Department's report on the body-worn video policies comparative analysis. I have Director Rhodes and Captain Ramos. And others to be introduced.
Good morning, everyone. Got it, okay. I'm usually helping you with your mic. There, Tom, stop. All right. Good morning. My name is Captain, wait.
Apologies. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Captain Stephen Ramos. I'm the commanding officer of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division. To my right is Director Elizabeth Rhodes, the Director of Office of Constitutional Policing and Policy. And to my left is Police Performance Auditor 3, Kimberly Solis. She's the supervisor in charge of our Racial Identity Profiling Unit over at DEID. And she pretty much put most of this presentation together and did the research that went along with the report that we provided. During the August 29th Board of Police Commissioners meeting, Commissioner Suthers requested a comparative analysis of how the LAPD's body-worn video policy compares to the body-worn video policies of other prominent police agencies. The Office of Constitutional Policing and Policy, the Office of Operations, and DEID reviewed the policies of the five largest agencies that currently deploy body-worn video. We also spoke to representatives from each of those agencies and completed a written report for the board to review. We're here today to provide an overview of that report and to answer any questions the board may have about the report or our current department policies and procedures in relation to body-worn video. The agencies that were selected for the review, just gonna make sure this is working. If it's not. No. Okay, thank you. The agencies that were selected for the comparison were obviously the LAPD, which we have currently 9,000 sworn personnel, 21 patrol divisions, and we started our policy or our deployment in August of 2015. The NYPD currently has about 36,000 sworn personnel, 77 patrol precincts, and they began their policy in April of 2017. The Chicago Police Department with roughly 11,000 sworn personnel, 23 districts, and they began their policy in January of 2015. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department with about 9,000 sworn personnel, 23 stations, and they're the most recent one to come online as of October of 2020. Philadelphia Police Department has about 6,000 sworn personnel, 21 districts, and started their deployment in December of 2014. And the Houston Police Department with about 5,000 sworn personnel, 17 districts, and they began in December of 2013. As we all know, body-worn video and the policies that govern their use have become a crucial component of modern law enforcement practices, aiming to enhance transparency, accountability, and public trust. While the fundamental goal of capturing critical incidents on camera is shared among various law enforcement agencies, the specific policies and guidelines governing their use vary significantly. In this comparative analysis, we examined the guidelines pertaining to the authorized access of body-worn video, the frequency of conducting body-worn video reviews and inspections, and the extent of discretion afforded to supervisors and commanding officers when it comes to accessing and reviewing body-worn video footage. As I mentioned, as part of this analysis, we reviewed the public policies of the agencies, and we spoke to representatives from each one to gain some insights into their respective review processes. Based on that research and those interviews, we noted several similarities and differences. They are detailed in the written report, and I just want to highlight a few of each. If you go to the next slide, please. So some of the similarities. Each agency that we spoke with has a review process. Regular reviews and/or inspections are conducted to assess officers' compliance with department policies, which also helps with the officer training and accountability. These reviews are completed by supervisory personnel and identify areas for improvement, offer performance metrics, and performance feedback, and can lead to disciplinary actions for policy violations, though they commonly do not target minor infractions. In regard to investigative purposes, body-worn videos are used as evidence in various investigations, including internal affairs investigations, criminal investigations, as well as reviews conducted by oversight agencies. Each agency allowed their officers to view their body-worn video before preparing any reports or before testifying in court. In terms of transparency and public access, each agency has its own policy governing the release of body-worn video footage to the public with the aim of enhancing transparency and accountability. Next slide, please. As it relates to the differences, the LAPD stands out as the sole agency to have a well-defined inspection procedure publicly available. Other agencies' inspection procedures are not accessible to the public. Another one, the standardized body-worn video inspections performed by the LAPD personnel, such as our Bureau inspection units, are limited to the objectives outlined in 2 department notices. Other agencies have a little more flexibility in performing their regular inspections. However, the Chief of Police has made it clear that the LAPD supervisors can use review of body-worn video and digital card video as a valuable management and oversight tool to aid in fulfilling their responsibilities, which extend beyond the standardized inspections that are commonly occurring. Next slide, please. So we looked at the frequency, the sampling methodology, and the extent of assessments conducted, and they varied significantly between agencies. For example, the LAPD, the Philadelphia PD, and Houston PD complete monthly reviews or inspections, while the NYPD in Chicago complete daily reviews, and the Sheriff's Department completes them as they need them. The LAPD and Philadelphia PD have predefined objectives and sample sizes, while the NYPD and the Sheriff's Department have no predefined objectives or sample sizes, and Chicago has no objectives but require 1 video to be reviewed per watch. And the Houston PD also has no predefined objectives. However, they require each lieutenant to review 2 videos per sergeant under their command per month, and each sergeant to review 2 videos per officer under their command per month. And then you can see on that right-hand column over there, we kind of tried to figure out how much or how many videos are being reviewed on an annual basis. Some of it was a little difficult because we didn't know the dynamics of how many supervisors. They have their own discretion to review, so we kind of ballparked kind of what we would assume what they were doing, along with Kim's conversations with their representatives. Next video, please. Next slide, please. In terms of the video retention, LAPD keeps our body-worn videos indefinitely. The NYPD keeps it for 39 months, the Sheriff's Department for 3 years, Houston PD keeps theirs for 180 days, while Chicago does it for 90 days, and the Philadelphia PD for 60 days. In terms of buffer time, the buffer time and video retention vary significantly a little bit between two categories. While the cameras are powered on, they continuously record and store video into a buffer on the device, and that can be set for a predetermined amount of time, generally between 1 and 2 minutes for most agencies. The buffer time is the duration of time the video will keep recording and will go back and capture video once the camera is activated. For the LAPD, Chicago PD, and Houston, we have a 2-minute buffer, and for the NYPD, Philadelphia PD, and the Sheriff's Department, they have a 1-minute buffer. And during that buffer time, there is no audio being recorded. For progressive discipline, all the agencies use progressive discipline for noncompliance except for the Sheriff's Department, which due to the recent introduction of their body-worn video camera. As I mentioned earlier, they came on board in October 2020. So they're presently employing progressive discipline for, not presently employing progressive discipline for cases of noncompliance with body-worn video policies. Instead, their approach currently is involving using training as a primary method to address instances of noncompliance. And next slide, please. So just to cover some of the stuff the department reviews, there's a significant number of videos as part of our assessment process. Regular compliance inspections are performed by the Bureau inspection units, as well as supervisors assigned to our gang enforcement details at all 21 areas. For our compliance inspections, in 2022, we conducted 8,786 compliance inspections that were performed by the Bureau inspection units. These inspections look at activation requirements, seatbelt uses, and incident tagging. Our gang enforcement detail has a stops review program that was established in 2021. In 2022, we did 1,516 body-worn video reviews that were conducted by the area gang supervisors. This review is a means to enhance employee growth and development while emphasizing consistent and accurate reporting. Tactical considerations and procedural justice considerations are discussed with the officers as well. The intent of these reviews was to provide immediate feedback and training for the officers, and no discipline came out of those reviews unless something egregious was identified. Audit Division also conducts audits of body-worn videos based on their annual audit plan, which is approved by the Chief of Police and the Board of Police Commissioners. Audit Division also is currently conducting body-worn video inspections to highlight training needs or ideas with regard to the pretext and consent search policies. These inspections are being discussed currently at our quarterly RIPR inspections and will be used by the commands for training and development of their employees. Next slide, please. Some of the challenges. It was difficult and a little challenging to compare different law enforcement agencies and their policies, given their customization to the unique objectives and the priorities of each department and city. Each agency must strike a balance between transparency, accountability, and efficiency when crafting their own body-worn video policies. The effectiveness of the policies depends on how well it aligns with the agency's goals and priorities while addressing their own strengths and weaknesses. And the implementation, which is unknown, just looking at the policies. So in general, we kind of noted the following as a result of our analysis. Frequent supervisor reviews offer a crucial avenue for constructive feedback. They can drive several positive outcomes as well. This approach minimizes the risk of repeated errors or misconduct. However, the frequent reviews may not be feasible depending on the size of the agency and the volume of activity that occurs. Flexibility in performing the body-worn video reviews provides supervisors the ability to prioritize and to address issues that are more pressing and time-sensitive. In terms of scope, reviews that rely heavily on supervisor discretion introduce the risk of inconsistent evaluations of officers' actions and potential bias. The level of scrutiny and criteria for review can vary between supervisors and may lead to disparities in how incidents are assessed. Conversely, strict compliance-focused reviews may inadvertently allow certain issues to go unnoticed as supervisors are limited to reviewing only specific predetermined guidelines or items. Limitations placed on what types of videos can be viewed carry the potential risk of overlooking important issues and not identifying concerning patterns. Implementing clear criteria when and how various types of videos can be reviewed in alignment with legal and ethical standards can help mitigate some of this risk. So for the department, I'm sorry, next slide, please. So next steps for the department, we are currently reassessing and revising our inspection procedures to clarify and ensure these procedures mitigate the current risk factors that the department is currently facing. Also, the department is also exploring the use of advanced analytics in identifying instances of no activation, late activation, or early or termination in the relation to the field's activities to assist with ensuring compliance with our department policies and procedures. This concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank everyone for tolerating the PowerPoint here, and if there's any questions, we'd be happy to address them.
Thank you, Captain. I'll go ahead and defer first to Vice President Shields.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain Ramos. A couple of questions I had. One in the report, there was a reference to supervisors having a little bit of a confusion about what their role is in reviewing, and that the chief sent out a notice last month clarifying the issue. Can you just explain a little bit about what the confusion was and how the chief's notice has attempted to rectify that?
Yeah, I'll take that on. Thank you, Commissioner Shields. So there was a little bit of a confusion in terms of how notices were written, whether they were inclusive or exclusive. So when it was whether things were expressly allowed, did that mean other things were not allowed? Or specifically excluded, does that mean that everything else was allowed? So that was a little bit of a confusion, but, and if you don't have it, I would be very happy to give it to you. On October 6th, the chief of police sent out a notice talking about review by supervisors in the course and scope of their duties. And this is incredibly helpful because the department has a very layered approach, as I think you could see from the report in the presentation, but this adds an additional layer. So the inspections are great because they are public. The department is transparent. The public can see the things that are defined for the inspections, as well as the commissioners can see that. And as the captain mentioned, we are in the process of revising and adding to that. But the review is a separate and additional layer that allows commanding officers to look at videos quickly, to give feedback, and to sort of look at the entire panoply of things that are happening or being said on the video. This is important in general, but also specifically at a time when the department is adding new policies, trying to get even more transparent, trying to have our officers articulate more what is going on. I know some of you have been very involved, and thank you for your interest in the RIPA ComStat, or the review of these policies and the addition of additional articulable things that our officers are trying to make sure that we have procedural justice, we follow the law, and we continue to evolve and move forward. And so that's I hope that answered your question.
No, I think it did. Thank you, Director Rhodes. And I do hope that supervisors take it upon themselves as kind of like a training and mentoring aspect of it and use it in that sense, as opposed to only punitive, which I think we want good behavior and we want to promote it through positive reinforcement as well. I had two questions relating to the comparisons of the chart, both relating to the buffer and then retention. With regards to the buffer, where there's 1 or 2 minutes, depending on the department, of video, do any of the departments that you looked at use audio as well? Or is it only video for all of the departments?
Generally, there's no audio for the buffers, and I think that's been consistent through different platforms. We use Axon, so I know for sure, and most of the agencies we spoke with do, that there's no audio on the buffer time.
Okay, wanted to confirm if that was across all of the departments that you saw. And then with the retention, it looked like LAPD was an outlier of keeping all of the videos indefinitely. I could see that for purposes of potentially investigating complaints that come upon later on. Do you have a view as to whether or not that needs to be reevaluated, or if the LAPD policy is where it's supposed to be? And you don't have to answer immediately. Is that going to come back to us?
No. Let me jump into that there, because one of the issues with city record policies, this has been an ongoing matter, that I think the addition of body-worn video now in concert with digital in-car video is establishing record storages that exceed just anyone's imaginable amount. Now, fortunately, with the onset of body-worn video, there were no limits placed on the department as to what our limit of storage could be. But now that we're arguably 8 years into this, they're practically with 8,000 plus video clips a day, there's got to be we need to, I think it's approaching time to look back and say, okay, at what point in time do we eliminate this record? However, having said that, we also recognize the public's view on this many times is very strict in seeing that destroy nothing, hold on to everything, because any effort by the department to downsize that storage obligation would be viewed as an effort to obscure or interfere with the ability for an outsider or someone else to raise an issue about conduct that maybe some years ago. I'm reminded of the record retentions that we do now that we're sometimes challenged about, well, is 10 years long enough for X record? And I know that Mr. De La Guerra may want to weigh in. This is something that the city attorney's office we consult with as to what the city requirements are in relationship to the police department. That was an invitation, but he doesn't have to take me up.
The retention period is a default in the ad code, 5 years. The government code has some different periods. And so the retention has always been an issue. There have been efforts to try to get that for video to be changed because of the cost and actually just the volume of records that are being stored, because at some point they really do lose any sort of effectiveness or need, because they're just so dated that they don't serve any purpose, not for litigation, not for review, because officers are retired or whatever. So that is a policy decision with respect to whether or not the commission wants to propose any changes or ask the department to look into making any changes to address those issues.
I'll finish by, I think at this point, 5 to 7, 8 years, once we start getting into, say, a decade, I think that, and without litigation, without anything that's actionable before the department, then that's where the cost benefit of this is. But certainly we can begin this now. Fortunately, we don't have cost implications because of the way Ms. Goodrich and others back in the early architects of this, with Chief Beck's leadership, formulated a contract, whereas the obligation on the city is really been minimal. But it is an issue that many other agencies have not had the benefit of, and this is quite expensive to store the amount of material in the government cloud.
I would suggest that the department look into this issue further and potentially come back at some point with a recommendation on changing that policy, because in addition to this, body-worn video does also have privacy concerns for some of our citizens. So the longer you hold on to material, that too can potentially, one way to mitigate the privacy concerns is actually destroying some of these videos once they are no longer necessary for the department. Thank you.
Commissioner Garcia.
No questions. Thank you for the report, and I echo the request that we definitely got to figure out what that time period is.
Thank you. A few questions. And again, thank you for this report. I can obviously recognize how much work went into this, and it appears that you personally spoke with people in those departments, and I appreciate your effort. Starting with NYPD, you note here that additionally they have a Quality Assurance Division, QAD, which serves as an additional layer of oversight. Do we not have anything like that? And are you suggesting we should?
Well, so let me break that apart. We do have audit division, and that is not the same as, but somewhat similar to the NYPD's division. Their stops, and having visited them, are shorter usually than ours. They do, as you can imagine, knowing New York, do a lot more ped stops, and we do vehicle stops more. So I think that our audit division is and can continue and should expand to serve the purpose of doing more of these. The audit plan, which will be before you, leaves room and time for audit division to take on these tasks. In addition, we do have these bureau auditing teams that are that conduct these inspections that have specific things that they look for. And as I said, or as Captain Ramos said, we are adding to those lists. So I think between those two things, we have essentially come up with some quality control division.
If I can just add to, we've worked with their quality assurance team. Their director over there, who's our Power BI, is in part thanks to them. We stole a lot of their stuff. We work with them. They're in turn starting a program to look at their traffic stops as well. So we're going to try and help them out. So they do a really good job at what they do, and we kind of mirrored some of our RIPA stuff that we're doing off of what some of the stuff they've been doing for years.
Thank you. Remind me again, how long is a DP here?
28 days, sir.
28?
Yes, sir.
So NYPD is looking at 2 incidents per day, per DP. And we're going to increase ours to 5. I'm looking at the NYPD section of your report. It says here that they look at a much smaller size, often no more than 2 incidents per each deployment period, which is significantly fewer than the number. We do 2 per DP, and they're doing 5. So it says here that we're going to increase. Do we have a timeline on that operation?
We have written a proposed notice, and it is with our employee relations group and is being proposed to our Los Angeles Police Protective League. So we are hopeful that that is soon going to become a notice.
Okay. With that, if I could move to Philadelphia PD, their GED unit. If we go to page 5, they're looking at 60 body-worn video reviews per patrol sergeant each year. Now, if I think I remember your slide, they're about a third smaller than we are?
Yes, sir.
So I'm just doing math here.
2/3.
Having said that, in talking to them, do we understand how they're able to crank out a lot more reviews than we are with a department a third the size? At the sergeant level in their GED?
Well, the GEDs are, each sergeant's looking at 2 per month. What we're not accounting for in these are our normal reviews of our use of force pursuits, all the normal stuff that we consider compliance reviews. They consider everything almost like a review/inspection. So they're more formalized where they're actually instructed, you shall look at 5 per month. Ours are, you look at it as you get your cases. So if I'm a sergeant working patrol and I get 3 pursuits, uses of force, I'm already looking at those plus more. We haven't codified saying, as specific for supervisors, you shall look at X amount per month. But some of the other agencies started doing that specifically. I'm sorry, Chief.
A couple of attributes of this to note is that the Philadelphia effort is increased level of frequency, which our proposal that we're going to sit with the league to consult with is going to announce more frequent and more expansive numbers. For instance, it'll go into 13 per every 4-week period, and then secondly, the Philadelphia model does not have the rigor as far as the standardization. What we want to see across 21 areas is consistency in what the officers are aware of how we are evaluating it. So the scorecard is what we found lacking in some areas that see more. Chicago, for instance, another one that sees many more, but there's not definition about what they're doing with it. And what I worry about is that they're going through the conversation of, well, yes, I'm looking at the video, but if you don't have a framework in which to evaluate it, then how are you scoring it? And what we found in this evaluation, which by the way was very helpful, was that we found that our standardization was a good attribute, but the frequency needed to be increased, and clarity that supervisors have the ability to review a video on any instance of an inclination that it would be helpful in them identifying positive performance or performance that was lacking and in need of some counsel or encouragement or coaching. So this is and that's what this report, which, forgive us, there's a lot of detail in here, and I really want to thank the presentation today, because I think it, in the summary of the PowerPoint, lays out the variations across and then gives you the themes about what we're trying to do with transparency, accountability, but also consistency. One of the, and I'll close, one of the concerns that we've heard repeatedly in the last 8 years by our rank and file representatives, that being the league, is that in some areas of the city, it was viewed much more stringently or harshly than in other areas. And that often it was seen as a gotcha. And so we've tried to limit that, in fairness to that concern, so that people can understand what we're looking at, how we're looking at it, and how they can perform best to meet the standards of the organization.
Okay, thank you, Chief. One more item for Philadelphia PD. You note here that they also, as part of their review, they document the supervisory actions taken resulting from the assessment performed. And then progressive discipline is based on the offense noted in the body-worn video reviewed in accordance with their policy. Are you suggesting that that's something we want to do? Or are you suggesting that's a best practice, or are we just noting it?
We're just noting it. During our stops review program, there is a whole criteria that they go, to the Chief's point, they go through and identify. And the goal for that is to, I think as Commissioner Shields pointed out, to sit down with the officer and actually explain to them, good and bad. This is where you did well, this is where you could have excelled a little better. And we've taken that further. Our detective supervisors will do that upon review of body-worn video to provide feedback. So we do think having that structured review back and that closing the loop, so to speak, with them is important. I think New York takes it further. They'll have their captain sit down with them and go through some of their stops, but their stops were a lot lower. So we did note it, but we wanted to point out every attribute of each agency, not suggesting one is better or worse than the other.
However, we do, just for the record, we do note deviations that officers who fall short of our standards. There are supervisory action items, and there are instances of progressive discipline. So at a minimum, informal meeting, counseling, up to and including initiation of a complaint and suspension, and jeopardizing in worst case scenarios, the position that the officer holds or the supervisor holds. So there's different terms of this, but the accountability loop is previously defined, and the proposal that we've refined in the aftermath of this study, and also, frankly, in reflecting upon what we've learned as far as how I believe the system was gamed by some officers because of a perception of that the screening or oversight would not capture this, is we've taken added safeguards. And what I mean by that, closing, is that previously, for instance, as a gesture to understand that pretext stops and the conduct of an officer in dealing with that stop, giving voice, fairness, ensuring the person feels like they're being respected, we wanted to audit that not from a point of in the aftermath of an arrest or use of force or a pursuit, because those are already viewed and including judicial review. So we wanted to limit our inspections by the Bureau inspection teams to the gang units to stops that did not involve enforcement, because there wasn't a supervisor there to see it, there wasn't a supervisor later to review it. Well, in doing that, though, people understood that if they took enforcement action, that the likelihood of closer scrutiny to that event may not have occurred. And so that's why we've modified this to increase the odds and the circumstances that the pool of instances in which we'll inspect can include every video incident that will then look at the before, during, and after. So this is a learning process. It's one that the organization continues to evolve to meet the needs. And I'll say though, the vast majority, I still believe, of our personnel follow our procedures, meet our expectations. However, we recognize that part of accountability and oversight is working on those that have somehow lost sight of their integrity, the lost sight of their responsibilities, and we need to ensure systems that can quickly identify those.
No, thank you, Chief. That's very helpful. But you segue again into my next question, and I only have two more. I asked for this, so I was, and obviously was quite serious about asking for this. In your first appendix, under Office of Operations, you talk about the Gang Enforcement Detail Stops Review Program. So there you say, the reviews are performed by all area GED supervisors assisted by a respective Bureau Inspection Unit in each DP. So having said that, these reviews should reveal when officers are turning their body-worn videos off during a stop, correct?
Yeah, so to the chief's point, those reviews we're talking about during that particular inspection procedure. So that was the one that order came out in 2021. That would look at 2 incidents per DP, per sergeant, per officer in that GED unit that did not result in any enforcement action taken whatsoever. So regardless of what happened, like late activation or whatever it was, yes, it would be discovered during that review.
So my question/concern is, we should not have to get a citizen complaint about that kind of activity if we're doing these kinds of audits and inspections that would note this kind of activity and showing up in our reviews, correct?
Yes, if we're looking at, but to that point, we're looking at 2 to 10 videos per month required per the inspection with a unit that does hundreds and hundreds of stops per month. So to catch that activity, and then the whole point was if you document what good or bad activity occurred.
Yep.
But I think the other point where the chief's talking about retention, we have about 8 petabytes worth of videos.
Understood.
To the tune of 8,000 a month. I think the Bureau inspection teams, when they do their inspections each month, we're already past the one-tail test because there's over 10,000 videos per month. And so we're looking at maybe 80. So 80 out of 10,000, we're not going to catch everything.
Okay.
But we try to catch as much as we can and formalize those inspection procedures.
So let me ask another question, 'cause I'm a data guy.
Yes, sir.
What denotes a pattern or a trend when you do see this, someone doing this? How many do you need? And it's just a hypothetical for now, but given the volume you're looking at, are we looking at too few that we can't identify a trend, or are we missing it?
Well, I think to that point, that's why we're expanding the program to try and look at, I think the GED one was too narrow, looking at that specific type of stop. To use the chief's point, try to gaming the system. If I know I'm doing enforcement action, there's less likelihood it'll be stopped. I think looking at our stops last year, we did 330,000 stops. I think the officers have that perception. It's more than likely I'm not going to have my body worn reviewed or that comfort level of wearing it all the time. So I think in fairness, we are trying to increase the inspection numbers because we realized there should be formalized inspections that look at certain things. We also wanted to increase the review aspect, which is why the chief put out that notice to make sure sergeants who are there, boots on the ground every day with those individuals, and they could have an inclination, I need to look at Peter's stuff a little more because I've had some late activations. There's supervisory action items that document their behavior over a period of time. Let me just go back and double check. It provides that supervisor with the responsibility to go back and do that, and it affords that commanding officer the ability to do the same thing. If I have an individual that needs some extra attention or needs to see that, or I know in new division, there's a lot of late activations or cameras not being turned on. I need to increase the frequency of me looking at those videos or have my training supervisor do it. So the compliance reviews really afford those divisions the opportunity to increase it where needed. And the inspection procedures set ones that will be done every single DP, at least 13 per area, 5 per gang unit. So I think it's a combination of both. And I do believe if we see a rise or increase in those level of complaints, to the chief's point, we could start making adjustments as needed to try and get to that magic number, so to speak, of how many reviews are appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
But I want to add something. This is not meant, this is like auto safety. This is one system. It is not meant to be the system, meaning that the community complaint is another mechanism, but so is the logging of the officers' computer or their daily logging of activities and what information. So is the supervisor being on scene and coming upon a motorist that may be upset and believing that, and that they were stopped wrongfully or inappropriately. So active supervision, close monitoring of at-risk activities, including uses of force, pursuits, arrest activities. There are a number of markers that can give you indications of potential problems, and then we dig into it. But what we believe this is an expansion that, upon reflecting upon other agencies, that it's an appropriate and measurable one that we can achieve with the resources we have, and that it's going to be done in a systematic way so that we can assure our the vast majority of our people who are working is that we're not looking for a gotcha. We just want to make sure that you're following the requirements as expected, and also recognize good work and solid professionalism and reward that. And so this is I think it's a measured approach. I want to thank them for the team for looking at this in a realistic way, because the other way of doing it is that every single video would be checked, and that is where it would just entirely drown the system. If sergeants are looking at, say, 80 of these events in a unit, then they will never be out in the field. They'll be watching videos. Lastly, the gang unit, which is where these audits started or inspections started, are work units that range between 8 to as many as 20, 25 individuals that are relatively static, meaning they're there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So the issue isn't the one inspection. It's the perpetual nature of the inspections. It's just the same issue with CompStat. The benefit of CompStat is not the single time in which you're asking for the accountability system of how you're working. It's the fact that you do that on a systematic and a regular basis, and you learn over time. And that's where I think supervisors gain insight over time by looking at these inspections in concert with the other activities that they're doing and applying active leadership.
No, thank you, Chief. And again, take these questions in the spirit in which they're meant, which is, at some point, I hope, with this technology, people come to us as the best practice. And so that's why I'm asking these difficult questions. And I have one more. As I look at my frequent flyer program checklist, what's glaringly not checked is the category on adversarial hostile contact. Is there a reason why we're not doing that? 3 from the bottom on Appendix C. It would seem that body-worn video would be most appropriate and most useful in that kind of situation in the field.
You know what that category was?
Or am I not looking at it correctly?
It's covered what?
What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't. This is the one that we got from my role, right? Yeah, we got this.
When the body-worn video is activated, that you tell the person you're on body-worn video?
It's Appendix
No, it says
C.
appendix,
And every department, the other
adversarial
ones we
hostile.
looked at, check it as something that they activate. This is activation criteria by agency. And according to this, we don't activate when we have an adversarial or hostile contact.
We activate on all contacts.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just not checked.
It's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think this was an oversight. I'm not going to lay somebody, this wasn't done by our group, but this is a combined effort. I think that box should have been checked. To the chief's point, every contact we make, whether it's peaceful or hostile, is captured, especially hostile, because there'd be a use of force and some other things going on there, or some de-escalation. But that's an oversight. It's definitely checked, sir.
So again, just to reinforce my thanks for what you did, and to note that I did read every page. I want to thank you again for this report. I think it's very useful. As you know, we're looking at some scrutiny because of some things that have happened in the past, and I think this may serve us well going forward when we can say that we've compared ourselves to the other agencies in the country, and this is how we stack up. So again, thank you for your hard work. I know how much work it goes into in the time frame between August and now to complete it. I know how research works, so thank you again for your effort. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the department's report relative to the body-worn video policies comparative analysis. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And the commission will now recess into closed session.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 5A1 and 5B in accordance with Government Code 54957.
And the commission has concluded closed session and will now have a report out by the Executive Director, Mr. Tiefang.
Item 5A1, officer-involved shooting number 001-23 was continued to November 21st due to lack of quorum for that item. Item 5B, 1, 2, and 3 were adjudicated, and that concludes the report out.
Thank you, sir. And with that, I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is adjourned. Thank you very much.